Bespoke radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Good evening, Fade to Black. Yeah, man. How you doing? How you doing? All right. Bespoke radio for the masses. Today's Tuesday, November 28th. 332 days into the new year. Just 33 days left. We are live from a bunker somewhere in downtown Burbank, California, and I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States, hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south. Yeah, man, far and near. This is Fade to Black for KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, the planets. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? Got my rings on. Got my rings on. You know what I want? I want one of those Elvis TCB rings. Taking care of business. Not the chain. That was cool too. But that big old nugget thing, that TCB ring that Elvis used to wear. I've seen pictures of it. I think you can buy copies made in China. You know, they copy everything over there. I want a TCB ring. I want one of those Elvis TCB rings. How you doing, everybody? Very excited about tonight's show. Our guest tonight is Alexis Brooks. And now this is what we're going to do tonight with Alexis. Yeah, we're going to do a full night of everything. Okay, yeah, it's going to be UFOs and supernatural and consciousness and awakening and pop culture. We're going to do all of that. But this is the deal with Alexis. The first time that we, and it was by chance, Rita and I were outside somewhere. Okay, it doesn't matter. And Alexis just comes up and starts talking to us. We didn't know. She didn't know. You know, nobody knew anybody. We started, and the next thing you know, we just became friends. And the talk of radio and hosting and all of that stuff came later. We just talked about life, and it was one of the thing was, I think we stood there for about an hour, right? And I was just thinking, that is one dynamic person right there. She's really cool, and we just became friends. And every chance that we've been able to hang out with each other at different conferences and stuff over the past 3 years, it's been great. Now, wait a minute. I was just going to say, I think she interviewed me or I interviewed her, but no, that never happened. It's one of my fondest memories. That never happened. But I did see her one day. I was introducing, and I got off the stage and I was walking through, and I see her sitting there with Richard Dolan. So she didn't see me or Richard, and I was listening to the interview. I was back in these trees, and I was listening. I thought, man, Alexis knows her stuff. That's what it was. I was imagining me sitting there instead of Richard because I saw how cool the interview was going. And I was like, man, I've got to get her on Fade to Black. I just have to do that. I want that magic that is going down right there on Fade to Black because she is killing it. And tonight's the night. We finally have Alexis Brooks here. So get ready for that. She is she's just a very seasoned professional when it comes to broadcast and radio and television. But her knowledge of all things that is our community is second to none. So just get ready. It's going to be a very fun conversation tonight. Tomorrow we have Riz Verk here, Silicon Valley successful guy and movie producer, a lot of things, angel investor, venture capital, all of that stuff up there in Silicon Valley. But he also knows his stuff when it comes to UFOs and the paranormal, the art of Zen. We will be talking about all of that tomorrow night and how to be successful in your own life. So that's tomorrow night. A very rare treat to have somebody on here like Riz Verk. So that is tomorrow night. And then Thursday is another Fader night, open lines with John Rappaport. That's right. John Rappaport. Have you guys, speaking of John Rappaport, I was talking to Alexis about this earlier. She had no idea what I was talking about. I loved it. She doesn't watch TV. I was asking her about the TV show White Famous, and she hasn't seen it. But anyway, we were watching it last night, and I'm digging it. Rita, not so much, but I'm digging it. It's pretty funny. Michael Rappaport is in there, speaking of Rappaports, right? And I love Michael Rappaport. He's just great. Guy's great, and he's really good in that show, White Famous. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool. All right, follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Simple, at JChurchRadio. Come and join the conversation tonight. You can follow Alexis at Higher Journeys. We've got it up there on Twitter, so you want to jump in and say hello and follow Alexis. You can do that right there, Higher Journeys, Alexis Brooks. Facebook, YouTube, everything is Fade to Black, J Church Radio. You can go right now, follow, like, and subscribe over on the website. And the sandbox, if you want to jump in on that conversation, is hashtag F2BQ on Twitter. That is Fade to Black Questions. If you want to join the sandbox, that's hashtag F2B. All of the chat rooms are open, and you can come and hang out there. It used to be, ancient history, right? Not watching TV makes you more intelligent. Well, David, I agree with that. I would say not watching the news on TV makes you more intelligent, because I got to tell you, if I'm going to watch some old video of Sam Kinison, right? If I'm going, there's a reason to watch TV. Documentaries, there's a reason to watch TV. You can't get everything off the computer or YouTube. I mean, there are reasons. You can't expand yourself. You don't want to go mind-numbing. That's what you don't want to do. What makes, and I agree with you, David. If you come home from work, and that popped up in Twitter, if you want to see it, just follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. If you do 9 to 5, which I did, my entire life, you do 9 to 5 and you come home from work. You get home from work at 6 and maybe you brought home dinner with you, or maybe you're going to cook it. I lived, or maybe somebody's cooking for you, whatever. But, and then you plop down in front of the TV and you stay there, channel switching, surfing, until you go to bed at 10 or 11. And then you get up, you go into your bedroom, and then you turn on the TV there, and now you're watching whatever. And you're doing that to just disconnect. Man, yeah, that's a bad road. That's a bad road. And you think about that. We have 250 million adults in the United States. So let's think about that for a second. Does that mean, 200, think about this now, 225 million people, 200 million people are doing exactly that. Exactly. That's exactly what they do. The commercials, the programming, absolutely. You're so right, David. I'm with you. I'm with you. That's what you got to be careful of. If you came home at 6 and you sat down and you started, watching a documentary or two without commercials, you're not watching the news, the local news, and then the national news, and then switching over to CNN, Fox, MSNBC, and roll that stuff through with its commercials and the programming that goes on, right? Yeah, I get that. Totally. But if you're going to spend your night watching really cool documentaries, some old Italian black and white movies, you're safe. You're safe. Come home, watch Godfather 1 3 times. You're good. You're good to go. All right. Where am I? See, I got all lost. That's what happens when Twitter is, but what if I'm watching Ancient Aliens? Yeah, great. Just fast forward the commercials. Get through the mucky muck. That's right. Don't let History Channel make a dime. Just go. Fast forward. Record Ancient Aliens and then fast forward the commercials. Then you're safe. Totally safe. All right. Email throughout the show tonight, jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. Breaking news. Big time breaking news. There is just 2 days left to enter the next late night podcast star contest, courtesy of your friends over at Tascam Pro. There's just 2 days. Now, we've had a lot of last-minute entries over the last 2 or 3 days. I mean, it's coming in, and I get it. Procrastination is the way. I procrastinate. I get that. But you now need to get ready. Okay, there are just 2 days left. Today is the 28th. Now, this is all we need from you. You've got to be a registered Fadernaut. We do that to confirm your email address so we know who you are. It's that simple. Okay, so you start there. No charge for that. Just go register as a Fadernaut. You must live in the United States. We're not going to comply with 165 other countries around the world and their contest rules. Have to live inside of the United States. Okay? Now, we need 3 things from you. You're going to pitch us. We need an audio recording of your podcast and show idea. We need your podcast name, and we need artwork with your logo in banner form that you would use for a website or promotion. Those 3 things. We need everything by midnight, November 30th. Everything after that will be ignored. The grand prize, my friends, the grand prize is a full studio. You're going to get a Tascam Mini Studio Creator US42, mixer, interface, audio, mic pre's, everything, effects, all included right there. Okay, you're going to get a pair of their TH-MX2 headphones. You're going to get a TM95GN microphone, all the cables, everything that you are going to have one of the nicest studios that you can put together. If you're the grand prize winner. Okay, so that's it. November 30th. All the rules and how to enter are clearly displayed over at jimmychurchradio.com. Head over, click on the banner, find us, click on the Game Changer page. Everything is right there. Good luck. We're going to make you famous, okay? We're going to give you the audience. We're going to give you the network. We're going to play your first podcast on this network. All right, we're going to give you everything that you need. Think about that. You've got 2 days left to enter. All right, the next podcast star. All right, our next event is going to be the Conscious Life Expo, and that's coming up fairly quickly here. We are already 2 days away from December. I can't even believe this, 3 days. February 9th through the 12th, 2018, at the LAX Hilton. Tickets and info are over at consciouslifeexpo.com. We'll have banners up tomorrow for the Conscious Life Expo, so you'll be able to just click on the banner. But tickets and info, you want to stay at the LAX Hilton. That's where it's going down. Friday night, by the way, for all of you Fadernauts, Friday night, opening night there, I will be hosting the Ancient Aliens panel, which is great because we're going to have Linda Moulton Howe, David Wilcock, Corey Good, William Henry, and Jay Widener all stars on Ancient Aliens are all going to be on this panel. And for you Fadernauts to get there in the Plaza Ballroom, the live stream, this is a massive room, okay? It holds about 1,000 people. Massive room, all there, and the Fadernauts get to hang out. And I want to hang out with you. So think about that. Come and join the party. And let me tell you something. That panel goes on, I think it's from 9 to 11 or 8 to 10, something like that. Okay, whatever it is. And that's great. It's going to be an amazing time. But you want to be at that panel to come up to Rita and go, okay, where's the after party? Yeah. And that's Friday night, Conscious Life Expo at the LAX Hilton. Okay, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. We have over 750 archive shows, $2 a month. $2 a month. There you go. You get 750 archive shows. Custom apps, Apple, Android. Very simple. Click on the podcast banner over at jimmychurchradio.com. Don't forget, though, our membership section is right there, too, as well, if you want to become an official Fadernaut. And visit all of our sponsors like Life Change Tea, GetTheTea.com, Rivermoon Coffee, New Pharma, Ancient Life Oil, Sacred Skulls, New Mana Food Storage, and Bearing Optics. All of our sponsors here are part of our family. Every sponsor has got something special for you Fadernauts. So you have all of the promo codes there, whether it's discounts or free shipping or both, or T-shirts, autographed stuff, okay? All right there. And if you go to the banners and you'll see the promo code that you use right there, it's clearly displayed, okay? So change your life, support yourself, support the show, visit all of our sponsors. All right, I do want to talk about really quick before I move on. Over at Jimmy Church Radio, we started this news section and fine-tuning it. It's just, it's done. There's a few things where, little quirky things behind the scenes here that we're working on, but the news itself that is there is dynamic. It's awesome, and we vet it, right? This is real news. And I'm not going to have any ISIS beheading videos here. No. And if you go now, I'm over here, and I'm scrolling through, and I know that this audience is built for a lot of different reasons, but the main one is the things that I like, I talk about. The things that I'm interested in, I talk about. Where I'm trying to get to the knowledge, I'm talking about all of these things. And whether it's music or Egypt or abductions or sightings, just whatever, it could be Bitcoin, it doesn't matter. And this audience has been built because you guys get me. You guys get the things that I talk about. And it's really that simple. It doesn't matter if it's Led Zeppelin or if it's the Apollo moon hoax. It just doesn't matter, right? You guys get the vibe. So I'm sitting here and I'm looking at the news section and I'm scrolling down. I'm thinking, man, I want to read every single one of these. And then I had to stop and catch myself. I did. Yeah. So think about this. And I'm going down these headlines. Listen to these headlines in our news section. Of course, North Korea fired a ballistic missile today. So we got that. We got 3 Roman-era shipwrecks found off the Egyptian coast. Sony, have you seen this? Sony, an 11th hour, are going to make a TV series on Rendlesham. Have you heard about this? On the Rendlesham Forest. So that article is there. SpaceX is thinking about chasing down that interstellar asteroid. Think about that. There's an article there about that. The Apollo 17 moon hoax is here. The Army spent $100 million on an intelligence system that it never used, and that's according to the NSA, and the leak. Got that there. Of course, Salvador Mundi and Da Vinci is here. All of these really, it just keeps going on. There is a new geoglyph that was found in Nazca. Have you seen that? Well, there it is, right? In the Palpa region. Michael Oming and his blog is up here. We have something up here from John Rappaport and William Henry. Everything is here. Really cool 360 thing of shot of a tango being performed in Argentina. 95-year-old is dubbed the real-life Tomb Raider, and that happened in Australia, stealing ancient artifacts out of tombs. How great is this? And it's a full page. You could spend a whole day going through all of this, and by the time you're done, we've got new stuff up. So please start your day every day over in the Fade to Black news section. We've spent a lot of time on this. The engine is built. It's wonderful. It's working. And just go and check it out. And down at the bottom of the page, we have a spot for your comments. And, this has just been installed, so you can do that too as well. And every day with our guest, anything that they have featured out there in their blog or website, we'll have that up there too. Okay, so please go and visit the Fade to Black news section. We put a lot of time and effort into that. Okay, with that, on this day, let's see here. We've got happy birthday to actor Judd Nelson. When was the last time? He's 58 years old today. When was the last time you heard Judd's name? It doesn't really matter, does it? Because you only got to go one place. John Bender in the Breakfast Club. Remember that? Remember the dean, that teacher, the history teacher dude? You want to make it 2, Bender? You want to make it 2? How about 3? You want to make it 3, Bender? Judd Nelson, 58 years old today. Also, Ed Harris is 67. And, he was in so many great movies, no question about it. But I always think of, I've got 2 that come to mind. Not even Apollo 13. No, I go Glengarry Glen Ross and Enemy at the Gates. He just slayed in both of those movies. But the new Westworld on HBO, he is amazing. Ed Harris today is 67. Our dead guy's birthday today is Anna Nicole Smith. 1967 to 2007, died at the age of 39. After being the 1993 Playmate of the Year for Playboy, she married the much older billionaire J. Howard Marshall in 1994, who died 13 months later. His estate, which some value that's, it's like crazy, $500 million, $475 million, was never settled when, and then Anna Nicole died of an overdose in 2007. So all the way from, 1994, 1995 when he died to 2007, the estate wasn't settled. It ended up going through appeals after Nicole died all the way to the United States Supreme Court. I think it even went there twice. And then it went back down through the court system. And a couple of things happened back in 2014. But basically, it's still in the court system today. Unbelievable. But I just got to say it. Happy birthday, Anna Nicole Smith. On this day in history, OTD, 1994, serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer, serving 15 consecutive life sentences, is beaten to death by a fellow inmate at the Columbia Correctional Institute in Wisconsin. This is the thing. I'll never, when that happened, I remember 2 things with Dahmer. I remember the day live on television when they said, we've got a news van outside of an apartment here in Wisconsin where apparently they have found, it was like, they found what? Right? And there was a naked man running down the street saying, help me. Well, anyway, I remember that. And then, the conviction, I was like, well, that guy's not going to last long in prison, And he was only there for, a year, whatever, and was beaten to death. And he knew what was going to happen, 15 consecutive life sentences was just too good. All right, fate or fact? Oh, man, I love my River Moon coffee. Fate or fact? From 1983 to the year 2000, 96% of U.S. plane crash victims survived. That is a fate or fact. All right. Let's see here. Happy birthday to Randy Newman. Fate or not, Randy Newman. Randy, it's your birthday today? 29 years old. Is that right? Happy birthday, Randy. All right, tonight, very special guest Alexis Brooks is here. Now, a couple of things I want to remind everybody of. Her show, it's called Higher Journeys, which I highly recommend. You can go to her YouTube channel. You can also go to her website, higherjourneys.com. And she has interviewed a lot of the people that we know and love, and I get that. But it's the way that it's her interview style and her questions and her research and her prep for those interviews that makes her interviews different, a serious cut above. So I would highly recommend everybody going to higherjourneys.com and please subscribe to her YouTube channel. She's an amazing, amazing host. All right. Randy Newman, the songwriter. Randy Newman, I Love L.A. I thought you were talking about Dew Sky. I'm confused. Whose birthday is it? Randy Newman. Is he still alive? I Love L.A.? You know, I think the reason why Rita, she's just messing with me now in messaging, is this. Randy Newman is the reason why I moved to Los Angeles. And the day before I flew to L.A., I was living in Indianapolis, and I was over at a friend of mine's house. God rest his soul, friend of mine, Tony Calger. I'm over at Tony's house. And on TV, MTV, it's 1983, right, is the Randy Newman video, I Love L.A., and I'm watching that video outside. It's November. It's freezing cold, ice, snow everywhere. And I was like, Tony, give me the phone book. I literally called the first airline I found, American Airlines. It was at the top of the list. I called American. I said, book me a flight to L.A. Wow, when are you coming back? One-way ticket, please. And that was it. That's why I moved to L.A. I turned to Tony. I said, dude, are you working tomorrow? He goes, no. I said, all right, man, just take me to the airport. Keep my car, just whatever. I'm out of here. And that is a true story, man. It was Randy Newman that got me here to Los Angeles. Happy birthday, Randy. How old is he? Is he like 90? Oh, he's 73. Randy's only 73? Very talented guy. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Buckle up. Phone the neighbors. Wake the kids. Alexis Brooks is here. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. You can follow Alexis at Higher Journeys. I'll be right back with our guest, Alexis Brooks. Stay with us.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy.
So are you tired of being tired? Well, then it's time to get the tea. Hey, it's Lisa here to tell you about this all-natural, all-organic tea I've been drinking that has had great results for over 20 years. It's called Life Change Tea, and it's specially formulated to help detoxify and cleanse your kidneys, liver, colon, and blood all at once. The colon is one of the most ignored organs in the human body. The faster that waste is eliminated from the body, the less time that waste sits in our intestines, spreading toxins to our bloodstream. This tea helps cleanse chemicals caused by outside intruders from our entire digestive system. And get this, weight loss can be a side effect. And with continued use of the tea, you can experience clearer, healthier, younger looking skin, increased energy, and a happier outlook on life. So if you're tired of being tired, get the Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. And like me, you'll be glad you did.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, The Planet.
Win big with KGRA this summer. Tickets and hotel accommodations to the biggest conferences, autographed books and DVDs, chances to win all-inclusive conference cruises, and private dinners with your favorite KGRA hosts. Click the contest tab at kgraradio.com for your chance to win big this summer. Your contact for the best alternative talk radio on the planet. kgraradio.com.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com. What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. How is everybody doing? You can tell I'm a little happy. We've got Alexis Brooks here. You can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Email is jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. You can follow Alexis at Higher Journeys on Twitter. Now, she is a #1 best-selling author, journalist, researcher. I've been talking about that all night, right? Talk show host covering metaphysics, spirituality, all of that consciousness and new thought concept stuff. Her work explores consciousness, human potential, and the deeper characteristics of reality from a transcendental perspective, and has been described by others as lucid and easy to understand, and covering otherwise complex and esoteric subject matter. Her articles have been published both in print and online for over a decade. She has been featured in the Boston Globe, Spirit of Change magazine, Wisdom magazine, Fate magazine, and Women's Business Boston. Also, check this out. She is, and I'm not messing around here. She's the cousin to Grammy Award-winning jazz artist Nancy Wilson. And I knew there was some genetics going on there. We'll talk a little bit about pop culture and music too tonight with Alexis. We have to. We're going to cover the spiritual, the supernatural. We're going to cover conspiracy and awakening that are most important to our community in the world today. But I'm going to just say this. She really knows UFOs. And I would like to welcome to Fade to Black, Alexis Brooks. Alexis, good evening.
Oh, man, Jimmy Church, what can I say? Listen, I have never gone to church on a Tuesday this late. Until
man.
Now. I'm so happy to be in your presence, Mr. Church. Thanks for having me.
Can I get an amen?
Amen.
All right. Now, before we get started, you know the drill. You're a first-time guest, so you get the first-time guest disclaimer. Which is, it's just you and I sitting on my couch having a conversation as friends. And where the conversation starts, it starts. And where it ends, it ends. But we're going to end as friends. Are you ready to go?
I'm ready to go. Let's do it. Let's have a great conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we've been looking forward to this for a long time. And it's funny because I mentioned I had this memory of you and I doing an interview together. And I remembered, I totally remember now where that came from. And that was, I was spying on you. I walked off the stage at Conscious, where was it? Contact in the Desert.
That's right.
Right. And I introduced somebody. And so the golf cart dropped me off, and I'm walking through, and I see you interviewing Dolan, right? So I step back in the bushes, right? I'm not kidding. This is a true story. And I listened to your interview with Richard, and I was like, man, I want to be Richard right now. She's asking.
You are a sneaky man. You.
Well, and so this is what I got from that, Alexis. Your questions, your prep for an interview is it's stunning, and I prep a different way, but I can tell that you don't play around. You know your subject, you know your guest, and you come ready to go, armed and dangerous. Were you always that way? That kind of inquisitiveness?
The inquisitiveness, yes. I think, and you're giving me a lot to live up to, man. I hope I can. And I'm going to apologize in advance to your audience because I am simultaneously also recording an audiobook for a mutual colleague. Maybe I can mention a little bit later. So I'm a little bit on the horse side. So we may have to play a little bit of volleyball in terms of the talking when my voice is about to go. But to answer your question, inquisitive, I think I came out of my mother's tummy, Jimmy, inquisitive. I don't know where this came from. In terms of these subjects, absolutely. In terms of the prep, look, who wants to not be prepared? I have to tell you a quick story about not being prepared and the ramifications of that. While in college, I was a mass communications major at Northeastern University. And, I got to tell you, I hated public speaking. I mean, I was just mortified, like so many people. And I remember I was taking what was it? It was a communications class, it was a public speaking class. And we obviously had to prepare for quite a few oral presentations. And when it came time for me to do mine, I wasn't preparing. I was partying. And, I learned the hard way. You can't get away with that.
No.
I remember I bombed completely. I think I ended up passing the course because I was kind of close with the professor and we were talking about other things. So, it worked out. But I remember bombing, Jimmy, so badly. And I said to myself, this is the last time I am going to show up in front of anyone and not be prepared. So
I think
that kind of came from falling on my butt.
Yeah. I think all of us have done exactly that. Where we have embarrassed ourselves, and that will, and that'll straighten you out quicker than, anything else. Getting yelled at by your parents, that never worked, but embarrassing yourself, and this is the other thing, and you're right about that. It's one thing to speak on the radio or do public speaking with people that you don't know. I find that pretty easy and fun. When you speak in front of your classmates and you're being tested, that's hard, man. That's a rough crowd because everybody is there to outdo the next person. Right, and that's and if you're going to embarrass yourself in that environment, that'll straighten you out really quick.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you something else that I think that I have been so blessed to be able to do what you and I do, and that is to talk about things that I am so interested in. There's no faking this, Jimmy. I mean, look, the subjects that we talk about, this is we walk it, we eat it, we live it. And, I enjoy it immensely. And I happen to think it is important. These are subjects that are vital to our growth and evolution. So it does make it easier. And look, I'm only as good as my guests, right? Dolan is, we love Dolan. He's our buddy. Has he gotten married yet, by the way?
He's close.
Okay, good. Okay, we'll stop there. I'm just curious.
Well, no, actually, I don't know how much he's disclosed publicly. But I shouldn't even say this because it was a private conversation we had last week.
Don't say it.
But things are really good in Richard's world. Let me say that. Yes. And you know what? She's really cool. She's really cool. She gave Richard a breath mint. She cleaned the crap out of his eyes. She got his hair cut. She got him some new clothes, and dude is a new man. I'm telling you, she straightened him out.
Well, when we were out at Contact in the desert, and by the way, that's where that was, where you were sneaking in the bushes or hiding in the bushes. I'll get you when I see you at Conscious Life Expo in Los Angeles.
Fair enough.
But it was just so lovely to meet her, and I could see the beam, the pep in his step and the beam in his eyes. So I'm happy for both of them. They're both lovely people.
Yeah, he doesn't have that bachelor tattered look anymore. He's all cleaned up, and he's probably using deodorant every single day. Good for Richard. But okay,
too much information.
But I've noticed the change in him, and he's happy, and it's just really, 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 really cool. I think he's found himself, and when you hit that mark of bliss, people notice that, and I was. Man, it seems like he was just on the show. Oh, he was last week. What am I thinking? Mm-hmm. And I did mention that to him, that there's a thing about his personality now that is different. And I asked him if he noticed it. And it always, when you find your bliss, you glow. That's it.
That's true. Well, just like what we're talking about, right? We have found our bliss in the things that we talk about, and not to. Well, I guess that would be a good segue, but it's true. When you find your bliss, your purpose, whatever word, whatever euphemism you want to use, it shows. And so I wish and hope that everybody can get a whiff of that in their lifetime.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, let's back up. Let's back up. Let's do some journalism 101 here and talk about you growing up, and also because of the way that you were raised and the people that are around you and your family. And I'm speaking obviously, as a black woman growing up and exploring into consciousness and awakening and all of that. Were you a fish out of water? Was your family part of that too as well? And did they understand what was going on?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Fish out of yes to probably everything that you just asked. Okay, let me give you the short sheet real quick. And for those that are listening in the audience that have listened to my show and perhaps me before, you probably heard me say I'm sounding a little redundant, but I grew up in an alternative household, Jimmy. I grew up with parents who were very left brain in their profession. Dad, an MIT scientist. Mom, a high school educator and later administrator for the high school. And very left brain, with very left brain friends. But when they came home and sat at the table with their one cocktail per evening before dinner, they would talk about UFOs and reincarnation. The Betty and Barney Hill story was huge for them. Right. Life after death. And on it went, as well as organized religion. They were just natural explorers. I think my father probably a little bit more so than my mom, but she became acclimated, and they just love to have those types of conversations. So when I was old enough to have a seat at the table, they welcomed me and they engaged me in discussion. Simultaneously, what was happening, Jimmy, is I was having experiences. Now, when I say experiences, that now we're calling even abductees experiencers these days, right? People say, "Are you an experiencer?" Well, sure. I think we're all experiencers to some extent, but I was having, I would say, the majority of my what you would call anomalous experiences were like precognitions. Dreaming of something primarily and having it happen in the next day or two. Now, this is a very common phenomenon known to many. I'd say that probably next to the out-of-body experiences are probably two of the most common anomalous experiences experienced by the masses. This was happening to me. Here's the difference. So you had a couple of things coming together here. Parents that were having these discussions on a regular basis, engaging me in the discussions, and concurrently me having these experiences, which I would share with them. The difference is, rather than me, like many people that have these experiences, I'm convinced most do, I didn't shun it. I didn't seek to put it in a bucket. I said, I need to know what's going on from as young as I can remember.
Right.
What I'm being told, what I'm being taught in the formal setting, of course, is not jiving with what I'm experiencing. And I don't think, now I wasn't using this kind of terminology, but I was thinking this is not an epiphenomenon. This is how reality really works. And thus the journey began. So, I can't remember a time when I wasn't interested in these subjects. And again, very much nurtured by my parents. I just lost my train of thought. But, it was happening enough, the experiences as well as just the I knew what I was going to say to you. Went to transcendental meditation class.
A TM
per my
class.
parents, TM at the age of 13.
Whoa.
We didn't do a lot of traveling. My parents, neither one of them flew. Right. So when we traveled, it was my mom was from Ohio, so it would be in the car. I'll tell you a little story about that later too, because there's a tie-in there with a sighting, let's just say. Many summers we'd go to Ohio, but we drove. They never flew. Weren't big vacationers, but you better believe when it was time to do, something like going on a field trip or transcendental meditation class, that's where I went.
Right.
So
right.
there's a little taste of my environment. Now, if I may, you did make a comment about or a question about, did I feel like a fish out of water? That's an interesting thing that I hadn't really thought that far back on. I almost feel like I was living perhaps two separate lives, and yet it wasn't on purpose. Now, as you know, I did grow up in the entertainment industry. I modeled at 16. Mm-hmm. So I had that too, that dimension to me, and I was really into it. In fact, my parents thought I was going to get so lost in that I would lose my footing and become a real shallow person. But I don't really remember any. First of all, I don't think any of my little playmates and friends knew that I had interest in this sort of thing. So we never had conversations about it that I can recall. But I can't say that I felt like a fish out of water. No. Although my maiden name, get this, is Fisher.
That's interesting.
So I was a fish.
Does and this whole, I was talking about genetics and Nancy Wilson, and I'm looking at one of your publicity photos, and you've got an Egyptian kind of thing going on. Did you? And I see it. It's there, and Nancy too as well. So obviously the family's got some good genetics there. But did you always feel? Did you ever feel a connection? Going back to the ancient and to the gods.
Absolutely. Well, I don't know how much you read, but I've spent a fair amount of time in Egypt. My best friend is Egyptian, and inshallah, I will get back there soon. My husband and I honeymooned there. We're there for close to a month and traveled the country, and then went back several years ago when we had a business, and we're en route to Dubai to pitch a big business deal. So I've spent, and I know many, many people there. They're very close to us. They feel like family to us. In fact, when we go, they typically speak to us in Arabic. And when we open our mouth, it's over. Yeah, right. Obviously.
Yeah, they're assuming. Right.
A connection unequivocally. When my husband and I first got off the plane, I recall in 1995, we clearly felt like we had come home. And my husband has always had a fascination with the Sphinx. Now, he is not nearly as voracious a reader or researcher in these certain areas as I am. But when it comes to talking about the Sphinx, he feels unequivocally that he has some connection there. So that's something that we haven't fully explored yet, but absolutely there's...
William Henry, his wife Claire said to me one day, he said this too, and I've always found this really interesting. They do so many tours over there, with these large groups. And she said she kicks back and watches everybody in the tour group, because everybody, as they go to these different sites and temples and areas across Egypt, up and down the Nile, that everybody will have a connection to a specific place there. And it's always different, right? And she'll watch this transformation when somebody makes the connection. So this is real. I mean, you can tell your husband that, if it's the Sphinx. Have you interviewed Damon T. Barry?
I haven't.
Okay. Well,
I've heard the name, but I haven't.
Okay. Interview Damon. He's wonderful. Anyway, he tells this story. He's the director of the film series, the Knowledge of the Forever Time, and a great series. But anyway, he was working at the time he was doing, he was in media. I think he was working for the Army. He was doing commercials. He was the voice for for the army or something like that. Anyway, he's in Cairo and he's got a day off. And so he goes to the Giza Plateau, walks up to the Sphinx. This is his words, touches it with his right hand. His brain blows up and he passes out. He face plants. Right?
Interesting.
Yes.
And when was this? How long ago was this?
Oh, I think for Damon, it was probably, I think it was about 7 or 8 years ago. So he comes back. He comes back from Cairo, quits media, quits everything that he was working for, and starts writing. And he knew nothing about ancient history or the Sphinx or the pyramids or Egyptians or ufology or none of that. It all happened when he touched the Sphinx, and so for him, it was the Sphinx. He didn't get it from anything else.
He was lucky that he got close enough to touch the Sphinx because, as far as I can recall, I know we were back there. Oh gosh, in the end of 2008, and obviously they've been doing a lot of excavation around that area. Around the Sphinx specifically. And you can't even get near, I mean, you can obviously get in the vicinity, but you can't actually touch the structure. And it's so interesting that you say that because I wonder maybe too many people were having those experiences and they decided we can't be letting people touch this thing too much. So there's a lot of mystery there. And I don't know, I haven't really studied it to that extent. But I know that there are certainly a lot of mysteries surrounding that whole area. I recall just very briefly getting we were at the Giza Plateau. Of course, you got to go to the pyramids. And as I said, the first time we traveled the entire country, and there's a lot to see. But I recall, Jimmy, getting a photo. We were at the plateau right by the great pyramid. And I got a photo where the sunlight had cast this amazing shadow, I suppose, on the Sphinx. It was just absolutely stunning, and it looked unnatural. I'll send you a copy of the picture if I can find it, but something said to me that there's no way these structures were put here, well, obviously not randomly, but I think there was a lot of methodology that went into why they're positioned where they are. There's a special energy going on there for sure. Yeah,
they didn't just, you know what? Let's build these here now. Let's just crank this out. No, you're absolutely right with that. I wanted to ask you really quick before we head to the break about Nancy. Really quick, I just have to. I've got a couple of questions. Were you guys close growing up as cousins?
Yeah, she's like my mom. She's like, I mean, we've been close as really, I didn't get to know her as an adult, me being an adult, until I did a stint in LA when I was doing some modeling and some bit parts and blah, blah, blah. And my mom I told you she never flew, drove out to Los Angeles from Boston with a friend to see me. And we had a reunion, all of us there. We went out to Nancy's ranch out in the high desert near Palm Springs. Mm-hmm. And how old was I? I was 21. We have been inseparable ever since. So our friendship, really a friendship and kinship developed at that point. And she's like my mom now. And then my mom passed in 1996. And she became, I call her Mom Susie because her middle name is Sue.
Right.
So we just celebrated her 80th birthday last year. As a matter of fact, right after the Conscious Life Expo, we went out to her place and spent some days with her and then had a fantastic celebration, star-studded with Stevie Wonder and Arsenio Hall and Angela Bassett, and yours truly got to get up and speak in front of all those folk. So I had to prepare for that. Actually, it was somewhat impromptu, but so we've been very close. I mean, she's had some amazing experiences, by the way, that she shared with me.
I wanted to add, well, she lives out there, so she's doing that every single day. But, something's going on in the skies up there constantly. But did you have an understanding, because I do, I'm on the outside looking in, but, how big of a star and how influential she was? I mean,
I don't. I mean, of course, I understand intellectually. I know the stats. I know,
Right.
Yeah, I know how big she is. It's really my husband that likes to remind me.
I'm sure.
And we have nicknames for her that I'm not going to divulge, but he's like, this is, do you know this? I'm like, really? What are you talking about? When you grow up in this environment, Jimmy, and then I'm, obviously went to mainstream radio and at a stint in TV. you kind of become immune to it, to be honest with you. And I have to tell you that when we did the big 80th birthday celebration for her this past February, this and to have all of these other major stars, Stevie Wonder, and oh my God, there were so many people, Dionne Warwick, and you name it, everybody was there paying homage to her. Just, just really, it was so touching and odd, because I've never seen her really in that light. I mean, we just hang out, stay up late at night. I'll be, as soon as I leave Conscious Life Expo in February, we'll drive out she lives 5 minutes from Joshua Tree, by the way. Right. 5 minutes. In fact, her son came with you were in front of her son, because her son was with me at the Richard Dolan interview. He helped me set that up.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
well, didn't you who did you I met your husband, but did you introduce me to him? When Rita and I...
Yes, he was walking with us.
He was walking with you guys, and Rita and I came up.
That was Nancy's son, yeah.
I do remember that now. I do remember. We've got to take a break. Now, when we come back, we've got so many areas that we're going to dive into, but I think we should probably start and see where we end. But we'll start with the UFO subject. And what is interesting for me as we set this up, you brought up Betty and Barney Hill. Did you was there something else that caused an epiphany for you with this UFO subject? Was it a sighting, or was it a subject that brought you here?
You want me to go there right now?
Yeah, let's set it up.
It's interesting that we use these terms UFO, ET, et al., the labels. And my audience knows I tend to loathe labels, because I think that they can become, stigmas are attached to them. Here's what brought me to the subject quickly: the experiencer aspect. It became clear to me that this was a subject far more vast than even the Betty and Barney Hill. Obviously you would call them experiencers, but I was still sort of stuck in that commercialized, sort of stigmatized image of little gray men and unidentified flying objects, and what they want us to know, the extent to which they want us to know. And so that was actually a subject that I was not really too keen on. I didn't feel any attraction to it until I pulled off of my parents' shelf Whitley's book, Communion.
Right.
And that's what sort of opened the door for me.
That'll do it.
Yeah, that's what started it out. So we can leave it there. But I will say, for the record, I am probably less interested in the craft sightings, because they happen all the time, including to me. We can get into that if you want. But as I am talking to more and more experiencers across a multitude of platforms globally, there's just a lot going on there.
Well, let's take a break. We'll take a break right here. Our guest tonight is Alexis Brooks. Alexis Brooks, the host of Higher Journeys. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. You can follow Alexis at Higher Journeys on Twitter. We'll be right back.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station, Salt Lake City, Utah, Van Buren, Arkansas. Hello, Fadernauts. This is Jimmy Church, and I'm introducing New Pharma, a company whose products are based on science. Human function based on the endocannabinoid system, or ECS. New Pharma firmly believes in this science, and their research indicates that support of the ECS provides the beneficial effects for a healthy lifestyle. New Pharma's science includes relief capsules for pain relief, sleep capsules, which are natural support for occasional sleeplessness. Foundation is support for your ECS, and Fit capsules support your active lifestyle. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2B for a 33% discount on all of their products. or visit newpharma.com for all of the knowledge on the science. That's GNUpharma.com. Go back, Lee Tappy.
Hello, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA Digital Broadcast Station.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to jimmychurchradio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And this is Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. Yes. We are of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And I'm Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
And you're listening to Jimmy Church.
The Revolution.
Ancient Life Oil. Life-changing. The real oil. CBD is truly ancient life oil from the source. This oil has no psychoactive effect and is also legal in all 50 states. When you're healthy, you're happy. The truth about this wonderful plant is that it wants to give back to mankind life, longevity, and happiness. Ancient Life Oil are golden grade, all organic, non-GMO, and infused with high-quality liquid coconut oil. It's simple. Just go to ancientlifeoil.com today. That's ancientlifeoil.com. The best, purest, organic, and non-GMO CBD in the world. Go back, Lee Tappy. The statements made regarding these products have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Please consult your healthcare professional about potential interactions or other possible complications before using any product.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. It's nights like this that make my job really fun. Our guest tonight is Alexis Brooks, host of Higher Journeys. And you can check her out, her YouTube channel and her website, higherjourneys.com. The links are right there at jimmychurchradio.com. And what is interesting about what you said right before the break, do a little reset here, is that I did the very same things. All right. It was Betty and Barney Hill, an Interrupted Journey, read that book. You know, I had my own transformation growing up and was aware and awake and trying to figure things out. And then Betty and Dreesen and her book, and then Whitley Strieber. Now, but this is what is funny about that. I have heard the same thing over and over again from so many different people. And I don't know if Whitley or the Hills, certainly they're no longer with us anymore, but their influence on our community. I mean, it is long lasting. It is here. And you're on this show tonight. You know what I mean? And I've heard it over and over again. And certainly you've heard the same things, too, as well. And I find comfort in that.
Yeah. Well, certainly, I think Betty and Barney Hill set a precedent because it was at a time, obviously, when we weren't having these sorts of discussions this frequently, and certainly not as many people had come out. Not that the experiences weren't happening. I do think that they were perhaps just as ubiquitous back then. So we can talk about the time difference, and how people have felt a little bit more comfortable coming out with their experiences. But there's something magical about Whitley's style to this day that I enjoy listening to. First of all, I think he's been very transparent in how he's communicated his own experiences and some of the trepidation that he's gone through in those experiences. He really gave me the first taste of what an experiencer was and is. And again, I think that just kind of cracked the door open for me and said, this is a lot bigger and a lot more multidimensional, literally, than I think we know. And I'm still still never cease to be amazed because, as you know, I've covered the subject to a great extent on my program, and the types of people that I'm speaking with, the likes of Mary Rodwell, whom I love to pieces, now back in Australia, and the things that she is discovering through her, the testimony that she's getting from a cornucopia of people, from children to adults and seniors. I use this word so much, but this is a ubiquitous phenomenon, and more people, I think, are recognizing or having epiphanies, even later in life, that they have been experiencers. So I'd like to tell a story, if I could, about how this has touched me personally, if I can tell you briefly.
Absolutely.
And there's one of many. But I want to give you an example, Jimmy, of why it's so important for me to cover this subject and from this perspective. Sure, it's exciting, it's novelty, there's a lot of curiosity associated with it, but I also think it is paradigm changing. It's interesting that we're talking about Richard Dolan, because I think this too happened at Conscious Life Expo a couple of years ago. Long story short, I was getting ready to sit and talk with Richard. I don't know if we were going to do a show that day or not, but I was at his workshop. It was the Monday, the post-conference, and I was at a workshop that he was giving. And there was a woman in the audience, I'm not going to mention her name, but who had recently had a past life regression. And she told the audience about the experience. And in the experience, she discovered, in the regression, unbeknownst to her, she learned that not only had she had contact with, but felt herself to be of non-human intelligence in a, quote, previous incarnation. She went more into detail, but I want to cut to the chase because I want to make the point as to why it was important to me. Well, I was intrigued by her story. And so I decided, while I was waiting for Richard to talk to people and we were going to walk out together, I said, let me approach this woman and ask her if she'd be willing to give me her story and allow me to put it on the air. And I'm very sensitive, of course, to people that aren't used to being on the air and may feel some, inhibition about telling such a personal story. But I approached her and she was delighted. She said, I would love to tell my story because if I can help anyone in their own experience, I think she had a sense that there were other people having these revelatory experiences of discovering their contact and or, their being part non-human, let's just say. So she accepted. Okay, fast forward. Maybe a couple months later, we scheduled the interview. She was from the Miami area. And it was a wonderful chat. She went into great detail on how she went to this regression for a completely different reason. I think she took her mother with her and then came out of it a completely transformed person based on what she learned under hypnosis. Now, I posted the interview. It went very well. I'd say maybe 6 or so months went by, and I get an email from her. Alexis, this is blah, blah, blah. Listen, would you mind taking that interview down?
I knew it.
Did you know I was going to say that? Okay.
I felt this coming. Continue.
I emailed her back and I thought, okay. And I said, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to say her name. Of course, I have no problem taking it down, but may I ask, is everything okay? Now, this is on email. Jimmy, she emails me back and she says, no, everything is not okay, actually, because ever since my regression, wasn't even the show really. She said, ever since my regression, I, as you know, have been a transformed person, and I have wanted to share this with my close friends and others, and they have bullied me, Alexis, to the point where I want to leave Miami. Jimmy, it was at that point that I said, this is not casual here. We're talking about people who have the courage to come forward and share very intimate details about something that they're just now getting understanding and still trying to unfurl.
Right.
And they want to share this revelatory moment with so-called friends. And luckily, it seemed like her family, her mom and dad weren't one of those in that camp, but her so-called friends were bullying her. This woman wanted to leave the place where she grew up. Now, by the way, woman, I'm not talking about a teenager here. I'm talking about a grown woman and grown people bullying over something that was very real to her. So we've got some growing up to do, I think. And this is why I do what I do. Mine is more, sure, it's exciting. And this is, what did Dolores Cannon say? This is the biggest show on earth. this paradigm shift that we're in the middle of perhaps knowing unequivocally that we're not alone. And I have a feeling it's going to be much bigger than that. But in order for us and them, whoever them or they are, to show themselves to us in the way that some of us feel they should, we've got to get over this pettiness. This is why I continue to do what I do.
Yeah, I don't know why that is. The thing is, when you're an experiencer, and I'm not sure if I am. I've had experiences, right? But even I kept all of that stuff to myself, and I know what it's like to come out of the closet. And if you are an experiencer, all of that stuff is bottled up. It's much like, you can equate it to so many different things that you may not want the public to know. Maybe, you're gay, right? And then one day you come out of the closet. That's a difficult thing to do, right? And then you may feel the relief, but and the happiness or whatever. But or so many other things that people keep private. For me, I kept my UFO thing a separate life, my entire life, and I've told this story so many times, Alexis.
I've heard you tell it.
Yeah, I had some guys. I had a UFO stash of videos and books and things that I kept hidden away. And when I had people over at the house, so what's in here? Nothing. Really? Right? Yeah. Don't open that door. Well, anyway, and so it's the same thing with experiencers, and they are reticent for all of those reasons that you've just stated.
Right. Absolutely. Well, I'm going to tell you, this is where I think I'm a little bit different, because we were having the conversation in the first segment about, did I feel like a fish out of water? And although I do think I had probably, an alter ego that wanted to be the model in the, in the entertainment biz and doing all that good stuff, it wasn't that I was purposely keeping my experiences away from that group. They just didn't gel. So I have to tell you, when I became more forthright about getting into this work as a consciousness researcher, I've never felt any issue talking to people about it. As a matter of fact, Jimmy, I feel part of some of us, if we feel comfortable, is going into polite company and blowing up their spot. And I can tell you some stories because, there was a crossover period where my husband and I had this very successful commercial telecommunications business, and we're traveling globally with lots of corporate folks. And I was still, kind of getting my foot and getting back into research and getting ready to launch Higher Journeys brand. And I thought, I get to talk to these folks about that stuff. Let's see where I can take this. So, straddling that fence and having a foot in both worlds, I realized was probably designed that way for a reason. And I have to tell you, the more people that, and I'm not one to shove these subjects down people's throats, but here's the other thing. A lot of people, you would think I'm wearing a sign on my forehead that says I am a UFO, paranormal, metaphysical researcher, because I can't tell you how many people that you would never think would bring such things up would come up to me and say, "You're not going to believe this, but dot.
Right.
You're never going to believe this, but ... And my husband would be standing there just laughing, saying, "This happens to her all the time." So I think that there's sort of a glow, again, getting back to the things that you love to do. I really do think, because we're intuitive beings, on some level, those people were picking up on my interest and they wanted to confide in me. So for me, I kind of went off on a tangent there, but I never really felt, intimidated, or fear of ridicule never really bothered me. I have to give my parents credit for that.
The experiencer that you were referring to earlier, after her coming out, right? After her coming out, she changed. She was happy, right?
Yeah.
Right. And you get to experience that. I do, and I know that you do. If you could give advice right now to the experiencers that are listening to this program that have never spoken to their family, their friends about it, what advice would you give them?
Well, first of all, I hear from a lot of people now that thank me for doing such shows and have said that because I have brought the subject out a little bit more on the experiencer aspect, that they felt a little bit more comfortable with their coming out. Advice. First, I think we've got to put in a little bit of context, Jimmy, because this idea of hiding who you really are has a long history. And this is where we can get a little conspiratorial. And it's called indoctrination and social engineering and blah, blah, blah. And your audience knows where we probably can go with this. But people have been taught to keep themselves in the closet if they don't fit the social norms, if they don't fit the status quo. I think for the people that, because by the way, I have really pondered the idea. We've got 7.5, probably growing at this point, billion people on this planet. And I pose this question to Mary Rodwell. I wonder, we have experiencers that recall being experiencers, but how many unconscious experiencers do we have? Perhaps billions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no question.
So there's something else going on here. But for those that have had recollection, sometimes it's spontaneous recollection, I would say understand where this inhibition is coming from historically and know that most likely you've been taught to feel that way. And once you realize that that has been a modus operandi for the longest time, and it continues to this day, start to listen to Jimmy's show, listen to my show and others, and start to research other experiencers. Everybody that emails me, Jimmy, or messages me on Facebook thinks they're the only ones having it still. And I'm here to tell you, you're not at all. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if some of those people that are even bullying for others having the courage to come out and talk about it, they themselves may be experiencers
100%.
And either not know it yet or maybe hiding something themselves.
100%.
There's a little bit of a game going on here.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that 100%. And with the success of things like Coast to Coast AM, Ancient Aliens, the proliferation right now on Amazon Prime, HBO, the networks, Netflix, where the successful shows right now all deal with the supernatural. And
sure do.
All of it does. And so now we are dealing with tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of people that are completely 100% outside of our community that have never heard of Whitley Strieber, right? Never heard of Coast to Coast, never heard of Fade to Black, right? Completely outside of the circle. But they get it, and they are questioning their own reality around them. They get it. Why? Because they may be subconsciously or consciously.
Absolutely.
I could not agree with you more. I just couldn't.
Yeah. Something is moving the needle that I have grappled with. I don't know that it's even necessary, Jimmy, that we know what's moving the needle. It could be the universe itself. And even though, we talk about the field of ufology and how it's marred in controversy now more than ever. And when the mainstream has, dipped their big toe in the waters of, trying to cover this thing. Ancient Aliens, brilliant, by the way. My husband loves it. We watch it every night. But we know that there are some mainstream outlets they're clearly getting wind of the fact that these subjects are, to me, it's perennial wisdom to understand these things. I always say the paranormal and all that good stuff is not an epiphenomenon of reality. It is the underpinning of reality and perhaps gives birth to the physical reality that we see. So, yeah, I think there are a couple of things going on. I think there are more people that are realizing that there's perhaps a subconscious prompt. We can talk about what's going on right now in terms of the veil thinning is what I like to say. But concurrent with that, I think, our major film and, production houses, our mass media are also getting wind of that interest, and they're trying to figure out how they can keep kind of the noose around the truth, but exploit it. I don't want to say exploit, because some are doing stellar work in the mainstream, but there's some tricksters in there too. So it's kind of confusing, Then you're seeing more reports on mainstream media outlets of sightings and, mysteries, but there's still that tongue-in-cheek that they just can't give up. There's still the giggle factor on these little news segments that they do that they just can't give up yet.
Yeah, they always cue the X-Files music, It kills me when they do that.
I'm telling you, yeah. So it's going to take some time. And see, when you go back to this poor young woman who was ridiculed by her so-called friends, and I have to put so-called in front because those aren't friends, that's part of where that's coming from. It's because to the extent that they are familiar with this phenomena, they're getting it via what? The mainstream news programming. So, yeah, there's been a lot of damage done there. And before I forget, speaking of the mainstream starting to very, very interesting time that we're living in. They're starting to embrace these stories with a little less of the giggle factor. Here's something, if you don't have it on your news site, you got to put it on. Mary Rodwell just sent this to me. Newsweek published an article, broke, I think, yesterday. Here's the headline. New university class claims alien conspiracy theories are real. Government is covering up extraterrestrial civilizations. And essentially, it's a Turkish university that is taking on a new course called Ufology and Exopolitics in its curriculum.
Wow. Well,
how about that?
Yeah. That never happened here in the States, but always
but
leave
Newsweek covered it.
leave it up to Europe or anywhere outside of the United States, I should say. I could see Australia doing that. I could see Canada doing that.
Right.
Not here. But what also was interesting, talking about the mainstream and the drip, drip, drip of the media when it comes to the subject of not only aliens and extraterrestrial life and exoplanets, but it seems to be a weekly, if not a daily thing. And this story broke yesterday about living bacteria that was found, living bacteria on the outside of the International Space Station. And
wow.
Yeah, now this is where we've got to step back here and put our reality into check. If this turns out to be what they think that it is, which is bacteria that has lived in the vacuum of space, that is out there living, accumulated on the outside of the ISS, they have taken it's now here on planet Earth. Now, we've all seen this movie, right? We have. We've seen this movie play out. But anyway, this is part of the drip, 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 isn't it? Because if this is a confirmation of bacteria that is living out there in space and floating around, now we have transpermia, panspermia, those kind of questions about seeding planets with alien life. What this really could develop into, this bacteria, we don't know. But the fact that it does live in the vacuum of space, and we are not alone. Well, you and I know that we are not alone. But this
never have been.
Right. This is how the media is dealing with it. And
I don't think they know what to do, to tell you the truth. I think this is a conundrum for them because I have a feeling, not to cut you off, but it is just so fascinating to watch. And the story, I'm not familiar with that either. I'll trade stories with you. I'll send you the Newsweek one and you send me the one you just spoke about.
Sure.
But the drip, 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 I think is a perfect way of putting it because they just have to feed. Somebody knows more. Somebody in that faction obviously knows a heck of a lot more than they're telling. But by the time it gets to the media, they've got to figure out how they're going to frame this, Do I think it's for the good of humanity? They want to just kind of spoon feed little pieces until they can acclimate us. I don't know if they care that much about us, but I just don't think they even understand how to socialize such things.
Let's stay on this, but I want to back up for a second and go back to the experiencer question, because what I find interesting here is that we have the experiencer question. But we're not dealing with, when we're talking about experiencers, we're not talking about a couple of dozen people.
No.
We're not talking about Travis Walton, in a singular sense, or Betty and Barney Hill. We are talking about millions and millions of people that are talking about, and when I say I'm not exaggerating, and the number is probably extraordinarily larger than that. So it's not, and it's kind of like the Mandela effect. It's not, it can't be millions of people with some kind of disorder.
No,
it's
of
not.
Course not.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Well, look, this term, which I tend to like out of all of the terms that are used, experiencer, because it allows for a broad range of experiences. Again, I loathe labels, and we use these things figuratively more than anything, UFO and ET and ufology and ET. I choose to use the term non-human intelligence, or NHI, as I often say, because I think now we're talking about certainly interdimensional, extra-dimensional, shadow people. Let's talk about that. And when you put all these things together, the variety of experiences coming from, excuse me, I'm going to lose my voice again. I'm going to clear my throat. Excuse me, coming from a multiplicity of sources and scenarios. Black-eyed children. Well, that's a creepy thing. But I mean, what are we talking about here? And think of all of those people that have had experiences of such things. Of course, there are millions of people. Of course, there are. I lost my train of thought again. But yeah, I think we're so far beyond, Jimmy, this idea of could it be? We know full well that there's something going on. And the number of people that have confided in me, about a variety of experiences. And, I've covered the shadow person phenomenon quite a bit on my show. I find that quite intriguing.
Well, with your own experiences, when you are interviewing somebody or somebody is sharing an experience with you, factually what you have gone through. How far out in front of you do you keep the BS meter, and can you tell when the BS is starting?
I'm going to be honest with you. Now, obviously, discernment is high on my list of priorities whenever I'm doing research. But the people that I hear from, I could probably count on one hand the people that I thought were BSing me. These are people that are coming to me, Jimmy, in need. I'll tell you one little trigger for me, perhaps somebody that may be embellishing the truth, to put it mildly. And that's when they may send me a long message about their experience, but it will culminate in, I'd love to be on your show.
Yeah, right.
That's probably one of them.
Yep.
That's not to say that their story is not true, but it's the people that come to me that are acknowledging that I've covered such subjects and either want my advice or want to thank me for covering the subject and want nothing more than that. So, and that's been the majority of the people.
And when I have, I don't think you take live calls, right? You don't do that.
I don't. No, it's
right.
A pre-recorded. Well, I'm not a live gal.
Well, that's okay. That's okay. So what I have noticed, not only through Fade to Black, but also Coast to Coast, but is that I field in month to month hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of phone calls. I don't know what the totals are, but it's an extraordinary amount of phone calls. And what I have experienced, and I've got about 15 seconds, and then we'll come back after the break and take this further, is that anonymously I can take calls from somebody that just wants to get this off of their chest, right? They can't talk to anybody about it. They can't talk to their boss. They can't talk to their girlfriend, their wife, their husband, their children. They can't, their mom, their dad. They can't do that. And I know when somebody says, starts off that conversation with, you know what, I've never told anybody this before, but I'm going to do it now. That I feel the honesty there, you know, and I feel the relief too. I know when they hang up their phone, they're like, phew. Good. Okay, I can continue on with my life, and that's what I find is special.
That's precious. Yeah,
absolutely. Let's take a break right here, and that's the thing when it comes to experiencers, Alexis, and I really mean this. They just need to talk to somebody. This is Fade to Black. Our guest tonight, Alexis Brooks. You thought I talked a lot. I'm sorry. It's Alexis' show. When I come back, we'll hear from Alexis. I'll be right back.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Oh,
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Hurricanes, earthquakes, wildfires. This year we've experienced more than our fair share. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and last month I decided to make sure my family does not have to worry about food should we get caught in a real emergency situation. Introducing Numana, a healthy, storable product that tastes so good that you'll want to eat it every day instead of just during those times of duress. All Numana products have a 25-year shelf life, are MSG and GMO-free, no preservatives, and are made in America. With the Numana pack in your home, you'll be able to sleep at night knowing that you've protected your family. Not only have I tasted and tested, I own it. Now you can too. Just click on the Numana banner on JimmyChurchRadio.com and use the promo code Jimmy when you order. In addition to a discount, we'll send you an autographed Fade to Black t-shirt. Seriously. Go Beckley Tappy.
Do you worry a lot? Whether you're a college student, busy professional, parent, or grandparent, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in 1 to 2 weeks. Call 1-800-758-8746 or calmandclever.com.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA. KGRARadio.com.
Hi, folks. CBD is the home run hitter for health right now. Why, you ask? Because of what it does for the body. Unfortunately, I can't tell you all about the benefit. You know, there's reasons. Do your due diligence and log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com. Ancient Life Oil uses organic ingredients and is blended in coconut oil for some of the best benefits. Legal in 50 states and non-psychoactive. Log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back. Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. You can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Simple. You can follow Alexis at Higher Journeys on Twitter, and all of her links are over at JimmyChurchRadio.com. Now, Alexis, we have so many things that we need to cover tonight, and so I'm gonna switch gears. And one of the things that I'd like to talk about is, okay, I have a producer here. His name's Hilton Palm, and I've known Hilton going back to we went to school together for broadcasting. Great guy. Producer, helped us launch everything here, the sports show and everything. And he was raised, black man, and he was raised in South Central. Real South Central, right? Like 88th and South Central, if you know that area. So anyway, I asked him one day on the show, I said, Hilton, if you saw a UFO, what would you do about it? And he goes, I wouldn't see it. I said, what do you mean? He goes, even if I did, and I may have, don't talk about it. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, dude, that's just our culture.
and there are just certain zones that we don't go into. And man, I'm just telling you, UFOs is one of them. And I said, why? He said, it's just, you know what, man? It's just, I don't know if it's pride or if it's fear of ridicule or if it's, but I'm just telling you, even if it just wouldn't get talked about. And I find that fascinating. And I don't know if that's a West Coast thing, with him, the way that he was raised out here. But he was adamant about it. Why is that?
Okay, really interesting that that he articulated. You and I obviously talked about broaching this subject offline earlier today. And listen, this isn't the first time the question has been asked in terms of, and I've gotten every question. Like, why are you doing this? You're the only Black person I know that does this, covering this subject. And why don't you have more Black people on your show? I mean, I've got to talk about these things. And so when you brought it up today that we might broach this subject, I thought, because this is a very sensitive thing. And I certainly cannot speak for all African Americans. I can't speak for even part of them. But I will back up Hilton by saying, I'm just going to cut to the chase here. And if I offend anybody, I apologize. But I mean, look, Jimmy, our culture, and I'm going to say our culture, but not exclusively. So many cultures have been so stigmatized, so ostracized for different things at different times. Certainly ours is no exception, that being people of color over the years. I think there is a pride issue. We're talking about something that is elusive and nebulous, that has a giggle factor. And I think when you look at the history of people of color and the ridicule that we've gone through on other levels, to add another texture to that on something as elusive as, being an experiencer, for instance, that's off the table. Now, again, I was chuckling as you were introing this, not chuckling, but just shaking my head, really saying, yep, no, this is not a West Coast thing. This is a Black people thing. I'm just going to cut to the chase. I've had people tell me that. Now, that being said, I'm going to tell you, remember in the last segment, we talked about the numbers of people that are having some semblance of experience, painting it with a broad brush, of course. I'm not talking the traditional ET and the traditional sighting, but a broad range of experiences. I can't tell you how many people of color have come to me and said, shh, I got to tell you something.
Right.
I see shadow people. And I'm not being funny there, because they don't say shadow people because they don't even know there is such a word, but they're describing experiences that fall right smack dab in the middle of an experience or an encounter. So reason why I think there is a pride issue. I think there are pride issues on other things too. And again, I'm going to reiterate, if I offend anybody, please forgive me, but I'm going to be as honest as I can. I've had conversations with other people of color that talk about how we tend to shun or not want to talk about illness, bipolar. I recall vaguely having a conversation with a woman who a mutual friend's son had recently committed suicide, person of color, and he was bipolar. And she was saying to me, Alexis, we don't like to talk about that stuff. We don't like to admit that we have that too. So I would imagine from that same perspective, Jimmy, that may have something to do with it, because I am convinced that there are many look, ETs don't discriminate. I'm pretty sure about that.
No, they're not picking
right.
They're not picking out white guys.
No. But I will tell you. So I'm mixing a little haha in there, But I'm serious. I don't think that's what they're thinking about. I think they're, I'm sure, inquisitive about, all the different hues that this planet is made up of. But yeah, I do think that there is, and again, part of the social engineering. I mean, look, our behavior is dictated primarily, our worldview is shaped and our behavior is shaped by, guess what? Mass media.
100%. And see, this is, what is so fascinating to me is we all of us, people of Earth, look up to the skies and we see the exact same things. So why?
Oh, I don't know about that. Well, I might beg to differ with you on that.
No, what I mean by that, no, we have the opportunity, I should say,
okay. Well,
to see the exact same things, and to not have, and I said this to you earlier, but it's a fascinating thing. I've done 760 shows. I've probably done, way over 1,000 interviews. And if you throw in Coast to Coast and all the other network stuff that I do, the numbers, jump, fairly quickly. The amount of black people that I've interviewed on this subject, I can count on one hand. Now, there's something wrong with that picture there, and I don't know exactly what it is.
I was at Contact, as you know, we were at Contact in the Desert this past May, and there were not that many people that looked like us, me there, and my husband and Nancy's son.
Right.
We were 3 out of, I don't know how many, but I think we may have been waiting to meet up with Dolan and Tracy. And I'm sitting there kind of hanging out, just kind of this was my first time at Joshua Tree, so it was really neat to just kind of take it all in. And this lovely young, very attractive young woman, maybe middle-aged woman, person of color, African-American, comes up to me. She goes, "Oh my God, I'm so glad to see you." I said, "Oh." I didn't know whether she knew, the show or whatever. So I extended my hand and told her my name. And I just kind of looked at her with a kind of not a furrowed eyebrow, but just a little, I'm glad to see you too. What brings you here? I knew what she was talking about. But Jimmy, she went into saying, I've been coming to this for, I don't know how many years, several years at least. And I never see people that look like us. And it's so frustrating. So I had to come over and say hello. So obviously, the first thing I said to her is, "Well, tell me what brings you here." She said, "I'm an experiencer, and I can't talk to my family or anybody in my culture about it."
She's probably so happy hanging out at Contact. I'm serious, and being able to be so free, and that goes with any experiencer, but. This color barrier thing, I don't know, and and if you think about it, I haven't had a lot of Asian or. I
was just going to ask you that. We can't just isolate these folk. We got to talk about others.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to ask you.
Yep.
Asian, Hispanic.
There's a friend of ours, and his name is Chuck, and he has his own radio show in Hong Kong, and you've probably seen him at Contact, and I think he's been at Conscious Life Expo too. But anyway, he's got a show called MJ13. Great guy, cool guy, very popular over in Hong Kong and in China. And so when I talked to him about this, the UFO culture over there is, pretty widely accepted as being real, right? They're cool with it, but it also runs at another level too as well. Very similar to here, but it's not like you can walk around these different conferences and see the colors of Benetton. That's not what we see there. And I've just often wondered why that is. I can't explain it. I notice it, and everybody's experiencing or has the opportunity to experience the same things. And why we don't see that. I don't know why. Why do you think that is?
I think the rabbit hole is deep on that one, Jimmy. I can keep reiterating the social engineering, not just vis-a-vis the media, but through our ancestors and, what they had to withstand in terms of ridicule on, again, a number of things. And so, that was passed on. I think that sense of keep it all to yourself. Don't tell anyone your business, including and especially that. Because I happen to know that the understanding of the paranormal and the reality of it is, again, ubiquitous throughout our culture, any indigenous culture coming from our African ancestry. So there was a break there somewhere. And I think that, it's carried over.
Well, there's and this is a good opportunity to segue because it has a lot to do with the mass media. It has a lot to do with schools, education, families, and community in general. Pop culture has a lot of influence on that, and how you're going to progress. But then we have this other thing that is going on today, which I want to say kind of started with Bill Cosby, which, and you know where I'm going with this sexual allegation thing.
Yeah.
But it has always been there. It goes we can pick out any year going back just forever that there has always been something like this that has popped up. And I'm thinking of different things in the 70s and in the 80s. Things surface like this, but now it is something that the mass media will not let go of.
They will not let go. You know, Jimmy, I have to tell you, if I can just interject, I was really kind of reflecting on stories that have been sustained in this quick news cycle that we live in. For a story to live this long, I'm trying to think of another story or event or anything that stayed in the headlines this long. And I got to tell you, the only other thing I can think of is 9/11. This is unprecedented. I mean, look.
Right.
Harvey Weinstein, I did a little research on this because if you want to segue, let's go there. It's just there's just so much going on. But the Harvey Weinstein story broke in the New York Times on October 5th, right? And then it was just snowballed from there. I mean, we're not even really hearing that much about him anymore. It just goes every day. There's a new layer. You know, most recently it was Massage Envy. The corporation is now being accused of multiple sexual harassment. They've got multiple lawsuits for sexual harassment claims. So we're talking about, what is this? We're almost into December. You might as well say almost the better part of 2 months that this has stayed primarily in the headlines with other things obviously going on.
And
go ahead.
It is so nutty that you mentioned Weinstein. We've already forgotten about Kevin Spacey, right? And it has been a daily thing.
Every day someone new's coming out. And every day there's someone or something new.
Now, why do you think it has it's not just, Hollywood's not the only area here. Now, obviously, we have, Washington, which has always been there in the background, dealing with stuff like, if we bring up Clinton, we can go before that, we can go to Gary Hart, or you can jump back to Kennedy. So it's
always been there, but this is different.
This is different. And this is something that now, why do you think that the media is driven to do this? Because the media has an agenda. So what do you think is driving this in the background?
Okay. I have only asked myself this question, Jimmy, 100 times because I am trying my darndest to figure out what's going on. I'm going to borrow a quote from David Icke that I love. He says, when something comes out of nowhere and suddenly ends up everywhere, it's the agenda. Someone is pushing the buttons. He's referenced that on a number of stories, but this is one of those cases. Something is going on here because something doesn't just go, spin out of control unless someone's pushing the buttons. The person to really talk to about that is our buddy John Rappaport, as he's spent lots of time talking to, obviously under anonymity, propaganda operatives, et cetera, and how these things happen and why and what they do. Now, if you saw my recent interview, my sit-down interview with Mary Rodwell when she was here in the States, I brought this up as in the context of her talking about the amazing revelations and coming outs of people at high levels that are saying that they're admitting that they're having contact experiences, in some cases lifelong contact experiences. And it occurred to me as I was sitting down with her, Mary, let me put you on the spot here. We know what's going on, this other coming out that's going on that's been sustained in the media for, at this point, quite a few weeks. Could it be that this is being used in part as a distraction for some of the bigger things that are going on? Because as far as I'm concerned, when we're talking about the reality of experiences, sharing our space with non-human intelligence et al., this is as big as it gets. I'm not saying that I was convinced of that, but I wanted to get her weigh in on that. And what she said was, it could be because, typically when they know how to get you to focus on something while something else is going on. Now, there are a lot of something else's we know going on, but I'm going to tell you something. Let's go back, if I may, to this Harvey Weinstein story when it broke on October 5th. And the reason why I wanted to double check that date and kind of get some facts, I thought to myself, what else was pretty predominant in the news at that time? Las Vegas.
Right.
4 days earlier.
100%.
Look, I know you had our buddy Danyan on, a great show with him a couple of weeks ago where he weighed in on that. We know he's in Las Vegas with Kat, and he had some very interesting things, some theories about what may have been going on. But I don't know if you're aware, there are a lot, well, not a lot, but several very, very credible accounts that are coming out now, eyewitness accounts of this whole area being shot up by multiple people. I'm not going to get into that. All I know is there's a smoking gun here, no pun intended, or maybe pun intended. Did they want to get this out of the news quickly because people are starting to catch on? The fact that the media refused to acknowledge that there were multiple shooters, there had to be. I've seen accounts, Jimmy, I have not talked to these people specifically, but we're talking people at Planet Hollywood, the Bellagio, New York, on and on it goes. Something's going on here, and we were blatantly lied to, it appears. Well, if there was some momentum catching on and more people finding out, they got to switch gears quickly and keep it there. Because as far as I'm concerned, I wish someone would keep the Las Vegas thing alive, because there's something really serious going on there. Now, I'm going out on a limb and saying that, but that was a possibility to me as I pondered this. There is something driving the sustainability of this sexual harassment issue. And it is a big story, of course. However, here's the other dimension to this that could be existing concurrent with what we just mentioned as a possibility. You and I, and your very smart audience know full well that this issue of sexual indiscretion at high levels goes a lot deeper than, I hate to put it this way, but the more conventional or expected sexual harassment. What about pedophilia rings and children involved, etc.?
Right.
I mean, let's be clear. We're not talking to a naive audience here. They know what I'm talking about. Could there be some, I don't know, by keeping it on this level, might it detract from it going any deeper? Or here's the other possibility. Are there some so-called white hats at high levels on the inside that have the power to make this thing come out and are slowly acclimating the audience to give you the tip of the iceberg, and then they're going to gradually take you down so you really know what's going on, which needs to happen. Well, so go ahead.
Well,
please.
I agree with you that the ability to control the narrative in a 24-hour news cycle, which is, it's a 24-minute news cycle now, and absolutely. To constantly change the direction of emotion on a daily basis, they now understand how easy it is to do, and to keep the masses their eye off of the ball. That's the trick here.
Absolutely.
It is so easy for us today, Alexis, to acquire information. We can get it from anywhere, and it's easy to access. But if you are being told about Kevin Spacey or Weinstein or the senator from Minnesota from Saturday Night Live,
Al Franken, yeah.
Yeah, Al Franken. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. But, constantly throw this stuff out there on a daily basis, then you don't have the time or the attention span to go and look and dig into another direction, like Las Vegas, right?
That's right.
So
and other things that maybe you and I and no one else knows about. I mean, but here's the thing that's tricky. And this is what I was saying to Mary, and this is what I've said in other similar situations where you're trying to get to the bottom of why. And I think one of the things that is, bless our hearts, us humans love to do is pick a this or a that, put it in this bucket or that bucket. It's for this reason or for that. What if it's all of the above at the same time?
Bingo.
Let me give you a quote real quick that I love because I think it's so apropos and so key to our evolution. F. Scott Fitzgerald said, "The test of a first-rate intelligence is the ability to hold two opposed ideas in mind at the same time and still retain the ability to function." That means it's not a this or that. It could be a this and that and that. And, you know, again, I think our being acclimated to or taught to pick a side, choose a side, pick a belief system, pick a this, pick a that, but you got to pick one and you can't deviate from that. I think that's BS. I think especially if we live in a multidimensional universe, everything, all hands on deck, all things could be going on at the same time. Maybe that's the uniqueness of the universe and how it has the ability to put these things out. There may be a positive side to it and a negative side working concurrently. How about that?
Yeah, the headlines over the last 3 months, let's go, 3-4 months. If we look at the drastic, huge, earth-changing, biggest news in history of the known world headlines that broke every single day for 90 days in a row. Now, these were heavy. Now, it's not just me reading. It's the entire world, whether it's, 5 hurricanes in a row destroying the Caribbean and Florida and Texas to Las Vegas, or these sexual things, or North Korea lobbing missiles over Japan and thermonuclear weapon. Whatever it is, it was like that for 90 straight days where nobody knew anything anymore.
Right.
You don't remember the headline from the day before. You're dizzy.
Yeah.
And it is so effective. It completely took the awareness off of anything else that they didn't want us to know about.
Love it. I think that is a strategy in and of itself. I remember, during this string of hurricanes, which were unprecedented, and the fury of them and the consistency of them got me thinking about bringing on, I think it was Alana Freeland, if I'm pronouncing her name properly, who is a consummate researcher in the geoengineering subject, or anti-geoengineering. She's familiar with it. Excuse me. And so I thought, she would be perfect to have on now because we're right in the middle of all of this. Well, but before I could, I was able to connect with her, but before you turn around, there's another headline that's in, you want the story to be fresh as you're, covering it.
Right.
But you're being pushed to the next thing so quickly. But so if you know that that's sort of a strategy of them as an inquisitive consumer, I say pick the stories that resonate with you the most, that you're the most curious about. For me, it's Las Vegas. Not just that, but there's something there that should not go away. And if you feel a natural pull toward a certain story, continue on with it and don't allow yourself to be barraged by because there's always going to be headlines. And they're going to get probably more deep and profound as we go. Love to talk about that and these numbers and how.
Yeah, we're going to do that. We're going to do that when we come back.
That's one thing after another.
It's unbelievable. And I'll say this as we queue up for this break. The one thing that I just found so interesting, how we can have the biggest mass shooting in the United States history and have it, a rock concert in Las Vegas and everything that it was, right? To have that be the headline for 2 days. And then 3 days later to move on to another subject was blowing my mind. And to have the problems, it was not only that, but the problems with the case that we knew about that weren't being addressed. And the press just decided to let it go. That is a bigger story than the shooting itself. This is Fade to Black. Our guest tonight, Alexis Brooks. We'll be right back.
Hi, everybody. This is Rob Halford, the Metal God, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station, Salt Lake City, Utah, Van Buren, Arkansas.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation. and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now for a special radio offer from Angioprim. That's angioprim.com/radio. ANGIOPRIM. Angioprim.com/radio or call 877-882-7221. That's 877-882-7221.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Your contact for current news and trending topics. KGRAradio.com.
Hello, Fadernauts. This is Jimmy Church, and I'm introducing New Pharma, a company whose products are based on science. Human function based on the endocannabinoid system, or ECS. New Pharma firmly believes in this science, and their research indicates that support of the ECS provides the beneficial effects for a healthy lifestyle. New Pharma's science includes relief capsules for pain relief, sleep capsules, which are natural support for occasional sleeplessness. Foundation is support for your ECS, and Fit capsules support your active lifestyle. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2B for a 33% discount on all of their products. Or visit newpharma.com for all of the knowledge on the science. That's GNUpharma.com. Go Beckley Tappy. Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of Fade to Black by just calling 605-562-4482. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Just call 605-562-4482. You can listen to me, Jimmy Church, on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Go Beckley Tappy.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why Fade to Black? Because you never got that pony, damn it.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. Our guest tonight, Alexis Brooks, host of Higher Journeys. And you can go over to jimmychurchradio.com, click on Higher Journeys. It's right there. And also check out our YouTube channel. It's absolutely amazing. Now, Alexis, this past weekend, well, let me back up. Rita and I, for years, have recognized the reoccurrence of certain numbers. We just have, and we recognize it, and we admit the synchronicities when they occur. All right, and this has been our little game, and we've done it, and have been just astounded. And more and more, we find that other people have been doing the same thing. So we're going to get into that. But we have two daughters, Diana and Nicole. And the two of them, for the most part, don't participate in this show. We don't talk about UFOs. They don't watch me on television. They don't listen to this show. They do their own things. And that's, as parents, we've accepted this fact, right? Okay, it's just the way it is. But so this weekend, for the first time, Rita and I are sitting out on the back patio. at night, and our daughter Deanna comes home, and she walks out on the back patio holding up her cell phone. It's 11:11, and I said, "Excuse me." She has never, in her 2 decades on this planet, ever uttered those words, and I said, and I turned to read, and I said, "How wonderful is this?" Right? Anyway, she says, every time I look at my phone now, I look down and it's 11:11. I'm tripping. I don't know what's going on. Now, that's confirmation of a lot of things at that moment, right? It's not just us. We're talking about, you know what I mean? This is our daughter that just does not discuss the supernatural or the paranormal or consciousness with us ever. She may be doing her own thing, but she's not talking to us about it. But this 11:11 thing, this is real. I do not look at my phone and it says 11:12. Right? I don't. It says 11:11. What is going on?
Okay. So where shall we start with this one, Jimmy? And you did tell me this story offline earlier after I told you. Well, look, let me give you the long story short on our little anecdote. My husband and I, 2005, had a profound experience. I did. In fact, you can go listen to the whole story. I'm definitely not going to get into it now, but I gave the story to Alfred Lambermont Weber on his show, where I had a consciousness-altering 3-month-long experience out of the blue. Transformed me, probably led me to get back to what I'm doing right now. Nonetheless, right at that period of time, shortly thereafter, in 2005, I began inexplicably seeing 11:11 on the clock. First it was 11:11, then it became 2:11, 3:11, 5:11, 9:11, 1:11, whatever, 11 after the hour. Now, this is 2005. We're talking 12 years ago.
Right.
Of course, me sort of being, tuned in, I suppose, to there are anomalies that happen and synchronicities, and I'm the synchronicity queen. I love talking about it. I have them all the time. But this was, obviously, it wasn't even a question of could it be chance? No, there's something going on, of which I have no answer for, by the way, for everyone out there. I don't think any of us do. But I Googled it, and to see, is it just me? There were a handful. Quite a few people, but certainly not the numbers we're seeing today. Well, so I had no context whatsoever, other than we're dealing with an anomaly here, a number anomaly. I said to my husband, Derek, I keep seeing 11 on the clock. Jimmy, he looked at me with this, and you've seen my husband. He's very sort of quiet attorney, very stoic, quiet, He's like, his mouth dropped. He's like, me too. I said, how long? He said, a couple of weeks. All right. Well, at that point, we knew something's going on. As a matter of fact, when you told me the story of your daughter, I raced downstairs and I said, honey, guess what Jimmy just told me? And he just looked at me and shook his head. Okay. So that's that. Now, I have since written probably a dozen or maybe more articles on this phenomenon because for me and for my husband, it does wax and wane. But since I want to say, interestingly, right around September 11th, I would say, of this year, Jimmy, I saw 11:11 a.m., because I'm usually in bed by now, 11:11 a.m., 6 days in a row, 6 days straight. I want to say it may have been a little after September 11th, but it was close to it was within that time period, maybe within a couple of weeks. Now, I thought to myself, this has never happened before. You see it, enough where something is going on, but I'm talking 6 days straight. 11:11. I asked my husband, he says, I'm actually not seeing it that much, but then he started seeing it. But here's what happened after that. A couple of things happened. First thing I decided to do, I just love my audience and people that come onto the Facebook page because they tell the best stories. And I love hearing these stories. And so I said, let me put a little fishing line out and see if it's just me. And I did. And lo and behold, a lot of people, the question was, are you seeing 11:11 again? Because I got this sense that it had waned perhaps for a bunch of people and then kicked back up with a fury in the last, 6 to 8 weeks. Lo and behold, I heard from quite a few people that said, oh my God, it's coming back again. But here's what else happened. I'm still shaking my head because since we have been on the air, I have experienced this probably 3 or 4 times. 22, 33, 44, and 55, almost every hour, or every hour, double digits. So I have now graduated from 11s to double digits. Jimmy, something's going on. And when you told me that your daughter, and I remember I asked you, I said, well, when did this start? And you told me when? Just a couple days ago, right?
Right.
I am convinced, I don't know, Lord knows, none of us know for sure, but I always say to people, be aware of the subtleties and the brilliance of this universe, because it's revealing if you pay attention. I will probably never be able to say exactly what is going on. There is a phenomenon going on. I have had some theories, but I'm talking about this time. Oh God, it's 12:11. Please stop. It's 12:11 as I'm looking at the clock. This has been happening the whole time I've been on the show with you. It's 9:11 there.
In just a second, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? Now it's 11:11. Right there with 11 seconds on my atomic clock. Yeah, and look, every night on the show at 11:11, Twitter lights up. Everybody.
Yeah. I hope we hear from some people tonight, because I'd love to get some feedback as to what they're experiencing as well. So, look, everybody has theories. You go to the sort of new agey websites and make a wish and da-da-da. And I'm not making fun of any of that. There may be some significance to that. I think numbers are a very significant part of our language, as Pythagoras postulated so much and so brilliantly, that there is more to numbers than just digits. They have meaning, they have frequency, they have vibration. But what are we seeing right now? Here's one idea, if I may, that I have thought about. I'm actually going to bring Linda Moulton Howe back on, one of my more frequent guests. I've been wanting to have this conversation with her for quite some time. We did a show also out at Contact on the computer simulation idea. Is our universe a computer simulation? And there are some fascinating ideas that are being talked about right now, even in mainstream scientific circles. I have obviously not tethered myself to any of them, but I think it's a very interesting conversation nonetheless, including the holographic model. But this idea, if in fact we're living, Jimmy, in some semblance of a simulation of code, of numbers, binary code. What are they made of? Zeros and ones.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that wouldn't account for the 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, and so on. Yeah, but there's something about the numbers that are being revealed to us. Is that veil, that proverbial veil between us and everything else, our dimension and every other dimension, finally thinning to the point that many of us are starting to see what this universe is really made of? That is just an idea. If this is a simulation, and I don't know, numbers, it would make sense, would play more prominently in our reality. And if the veil is thinning, we're going to see reality for what it really is. I would also marry that with something I found to be quite interesting in my surveying people who are experiencers. Many of the people that I'm talking to that are coming to me are saying that they're beginning to get instant recall that they were abducted or have had encounters in the last year or two. They may discover, without regression, by the way, conscious recall we're talking about. They may discover that they've been having lifetime contact, but the epiphany is happening in their later years. But now, here we go again with, if this veil is thinning, are the truths finally coming to the fore, including the very fabric of our universe being made primarily of numerical code. So I maintain there is something happening right now, something that we're leading up to, some precipice that we're about to hopefully not fall off the cliff with, and it's quite exciting, actually. I don't look at this as bad or good, but revelatory, to say the least. Something is definitely ramping up.
Well, do you think with this kind of opening, I don't know how to, shift, that we also have this Mandela effect that is playing into this too as well, seemingly to swell and expose itself at the same time. You know, at the same time that we're talking about CERN, or we're talking about a holographic world, or a Matrix, and Silicon Valley talking about parallel worlds and ones and twos and artificial reality, and this is all, but it's all being discussed at the same time.
At the same time. Yeah, absolutely. I'm thinking of AI. I mean, you know, the talk that I was having with Dolan was about AI and where we're going, transhumanism. It's all happening at the same time, regardless of the motive on the part of some, and just the revelation as another dimension to this. It is all converging, is it not? And there are, you know, I don't know. It's all converging right now. So this is, if there was ever a time to be discerning, to be aware, to be open, and I say, you know, the universe has been giving us a lot of wink and nods lately. Maybe if we start giving a wink and a nod back to it, it'll continue to reveal more to us, because there is something going on for sure.
Do you think that the rest of them, you know, outside of our community, the world in general, are they going to be comfortable? Because if, you know, forget about the disclosure, right? Okay, that's a whole nother subject. But if it comes to pass, if one of these, and I say this all the time, but if one of these dominoes falls, whether it's a parallel world or life after death or ghost or any one of these things falls, they all fall. Can the world handle this? Can they really handle this? I know that our community is waiting for it. We're chomping at the bit. We're cool with it. But what about the rest of the world?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question, but I will say, you know, this is, again, where you get into really kind of sticky territory, because when you talk about the world, look, we are a global community, and yet we're each individuals that make up a global community. Each individual. Remember when you were saying we all look up and see the same thing? And I said, I don't think so. I didn't mean it in the sense that, you know, in the way that you thought I meant it, but our brains operate differently. If we're living in a holographic universe and our brains are actually holographic, we're definitely not seeing the same thing. Someone could be looking at an apple and look at it as something totally different than you are. So in that same fashion, there are going to be different reactions to what's revealed. Heck, maybe not the whole world will see it. You know, Dolores Cannon, the late Dolores Cannon, would really believe that we would eventually split off into, or not we, because who is we? We don't know who would it be, but that the world would split into two, or there would be a new Earth, is what she called it. And some would inhabit, of a certain mindset would inhabit the new Earth, and the rest would stay behind. I don't know if it's going to be all or nothing here, or everyone or no one.
Right.
I think we're starting to see that right now, which is a very interesting thing. Heck, we're walking down the street and we may be experiencing a completely different reality than the person walking next to us.
Well, you bring up Dolores, and she's wonderful, right? But let's back up even before her. And I'm just trying to think. Jane Roberts, for instance.
Oh, the Seth material. I'm a student of Seth. Go for it.
Are you okay? Well, see, you got to love synchronicities, right? But today, Jane Roberts and Seth Speaks is more current, is more cosmopolitan today than it was when she first started channeling and writing.
Absolutely.
Today, that not only does it resonate, but man, I think she
perennial wisdom. Well, you know that the entire catalog of the Seth material, I use that term broadly, including the early sessions, are archived in Yale University.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So as a matter of fact, just a little plug for my segment tomorrow that'll be airing called Conscious Commentary. I talk about consciousness creating reality based on the Seth material. So we talk about synchronicity yet again. I'll be talking about that tomorrow. But yeah, more relevant than ever.
And when we're talking, see, this is what is so fascinating with me. There are some channelers out there that absolutely freak me out, right? And we go back to Jane and Seth Speaks, and even her video, some of the video that's out there of her too as well that exists. You read the material, and I think about the dating. I'm talking about the era that it was done in, and there's something there that I don't want to say is real. But maybe that's the only word I can use. Okay, that she needs to be listened to, because you listen when you look at the material today, it is current. It's current. The verbiage, the way that she spoke.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Current.
Again,
it's like
perennial.
It came from the future. I don't know. I know I'm sounding strange here. But it's true.
I think I understand. Certainly. So now you're going to make me go grab. I think I've got every book, including the early sessions, in my library. But I agree with you, and particularly talking as Seth discussed the idea of probable realities. He called portals coordination or coordinate points, and he's pointing out cities. I recall Chicago is supposedly filled with these, he calls them coordinate points, but portals, and a certain, and I would go back, I'd refer back to Seth Speaks and the nature of personal reality, and oh God, I can't think of all of them, but I have them all constantly, because you'll go and you'll say, wait a second, didn't Seth say that? And it's something that's happening right now. So I think it's going to become more and more relevant, what the things that he's talking about. I would encourage everyone to go and at least start with Seth Speaks. That was the first one I read, and then the Seth material, and on and on. But yeah.
Yeah, because, and also, I've had a few different channelers on the show over the years, and I can respect it. But this is where I trip out. And I'm saying trip out for real, like trip out, not drugs, but the head explodes. Is that the ability for non-locality to occur, and locality both, but in instantaneous aspects, to span a galaxy, and to know that atoms are reacting to each other instantaneously in a parallel situation in another world. Well, we're not talking about the speed of light. We're talking about
instantaneous
at the same time.
Yeah.
So the existence of an intelligence out there that is beyond us, more mature, and has evolved, perhaps by millions of years, understands this and communicates that way. And that's when I look at some of these, especially like Jane Roberts, that is exactly what is going on here. We can't dismiss that,
Can't.
And that's what I think is happening, and I think that the universe can communicate this way.
We can't ignore the experience either, and that's my plea to people. Look, people know full well that they are having inexplicable experiences, struggling to put it in a bucket. We're living in a new world, new rules, really not new, but we're finally being privy to how the universe perhaps works. I say, I'm an avid reader. I definitely advocate reading, but experience is the guide. We know a heck of a lot more than we're giving ourselves credit for. It's just been atrophied. Perhaps seeing some of these numbers are going to wake up some of this dormant stuff that's going to bring us into alignment with what I think we've always known. So.
I just sneezed on the air.
Bless you.
Yeah, everybody.
I didn't know what that was.
The audience didn't hear it. You did because of the headphone feed.
Oh, okay.
But they watched it on the on the live video feed, and they saw me building up to it. And I was like, "Here it comes! Keep talking, Alexis. Don't stop." And that's what that was. That was a sneeze.
I didn't know whether we were going to music again. I didn't know what that was, but nonetheless,
If I could, can I keep you for an extra 10 minutes after this next break?
Well, no.
You're not going in it.
Man, it's 12:30. I got to get up and use my voice. I'll give you. Go ahead.
Yep. You don't have a choice. So that's it. I'm being polite in asking.
I'm going to get you.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Payback is what they say it is, for sure. Oh, I'm going to share this tweet. I'm going to send you this picture at 11:11. Kat posted on Twitter, 11:11. At that instant, listening to Fade to Black and you. And she posted the picture on, off of, it's really cool. It's really cool to look at.
Wow. Send that to me. Make sure I get that.
I'll send that to you. But, and this is what I want to talk about when we come back is that in this parallel world Mandela effect time shifting thing that is happening. We talked about this earlier with experiencers. When we are now talking about the Mandela effect and these other possibilities, this isn't, again, a few dozen people talking about this. This is a phenomenon. This is a worldwide thing where, because of the internet, because of shows like yours and mine, that people are able to come forward and go, hey, you know what? I don't remember it that way. Now, we can't have millions and millions of people with faulty memories, can we?
Yeah. I was just asked this question about, my thoughts on the Mandela effect. I was just on Rosemary Ellen Guiley's show not that long ago, and that was a question that came up from the audience. And, my go-to person on that is Cynthia Sue Larson. If you haven't had her on, I definitely suggest. She's really all over that. But I think what I had said there and what I'll say here about that Mandela effect phenomenon, of which I too have have participated in witnessing things change inexplicably. If we are, big if, we're living in a simulation of some sort, if we are living in a holographic universe that Michael Talbot called plastic and malleable, all bets are off. And so the Mandela effect and how it's described becomes more plausible because nothing is, and as Seth said, with probable realities would definitely make room for that because he talked about multiple probabilities playing out concurrently.
That's right.
Or changing and shifting. We're talking about, I loved Michael Talbot's expression, there's plasticity to reality. And he gives tons of examples of that in his book, The Holographic Universe. So that's my thought on the Mandela effect in terms of it being a plausible model. Because none of these things are disparate. I mean, all of these things are connected. We're trying to fit puzzle pieces together here.
Well, and if things are going to be changed, right? If things are going to be changed, you would have to, which is fine if it's ones and zeros, but you have to change an awful lot of things. Right. And I think that to cover your tracks, right? And not everything was fixed. Not everybody remembered, not everything was done, and there are some flaws in the system. And if that is the way that it played out. But the other aspect of it, for me, which I find equally as fascinating, is just maybe some of these dimensions, these realities, are bleeding over into ours and going back quickly. That's all. And we're seeing the effects of that too as well, some kind of ripple going on. I don't dismiss any of it. I know that the phenomenon itself is real. And our guest tonight is Alexis Brooks. We're going to do a little overtime with Alexis, so you guys sit right there. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. You can follow Alexis at Higher Journeys on Twitter. I'll be right back.
Vivica Fox here, and you are listening to my boy, Jimmy Church, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter. But listening to Jimmy Church will.
So you went to dinner last night and you had your favorite pasta. Ugh. Or maybe you had a heavy, spicy meal and it left you. Ugh. Get the tea.com. Maybe you mowed down a huge steak and your plumbing is all plugged. Ugh. Get the tea.com. Our super strength tea will take care of your occasional ugh. It's all organic and non-GMO. Get rid of ugh. We have so many great supplements, but our super tea is number one. GetTheT.com. That's GetTheT.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of fade to black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Yes, River Moon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy.
Hey, can we talk about something serious for a minute? Your age. Getting old has its perks. But remember, being a few years younger, you know, your hair was thicker, you didn't have so many wrinkles, that extra weight wasn't haunting you, and you just felt better. Well, we can't turn back the clocks and go back 10 or 15 years, but you can start feeling and looking 10 or 15 years younger with Nature's Youth RSF. It's a doctor-formulated daily supplement that helps your body maintain its peak performance and fight the aging process. Imagine sleeping better, looking better, and feeling better. See how Nature's Youth RSF has helped thousands of people just like you at nature'syouth.com. nature'syouth.com. The holidays are coming. Imagine how it will feel when your family and friends are asking you what you did to look so good. Your secret will be Nature's Youth RSF. It's time to start looking better and feeling better. Learn more and order your Nature's Youth RSF at nature'syouth.com. That's nature'syouth.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRARadio.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
All right, welcome back to Fade to Black. Doing a little overtime with our guest tonight, Alexis Brooks of Higher Journeys. Again, you can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio, and you can follow Alexis at Higher Journeys on Twitter. Now, I just wanted the opportunity for a proper good night because I didn't want to rush things. But two things really quick. When we're talking about the Mandela effect or the possibility of this shift that is apparently going on, I think we can all recognize that. But I think if the world just took a step back and discussed deja vu. Deja vu has been openly discussed. Everybody admits to it happening in their lives at one time or another. And this goes back a long, long ways. And now we're opening up the door to this possibility of everybody understanding more what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I'm so glad you brought that up. Deja vu, used to have them all the time. Don't have them as much anymore. But you bring up a really good point, Jimmy, in that, look, for time immemorial, people have been having experiences that they could not explain, but that seem to be more dotted or peppered throughout one's lifetime, or, you know, certainly the reports of them, because, you know, we didn't have instantaneous information that we have today. But before there was less of a context for the experiences, I don't believe that the experiences were necessarily less than. But again, now there's a context. When you think about deja vu, and this is something that has fascinated me, all of these things are completely fascinating and all connected, a continuum, if you will. But the whole notion of simultaneous time, the idea that linear time as we know it is it's a construct, is something that's certainly been talked about readily in these circles, including in the holographic model. But if, and it's so funny, I'm thinking of my beloved mom and dad and how they kind of brought, where we started this conversation, as I was brought up in this whole area, acclimated to these subjects. And I remember I was reading a book. It wasn't Seth. It was another book that approached the idea of simultaneous time. And I have to tell you, Jimmy, this was years ago. I was probably maybe 20, I don't know. I was very young. The moment I read this book and this person's hypothesis on it, I thought, that makes sense. I had no framework for it. But I remember saying to my mother, Mom, listen to this. And I read whatever the passage was that approached the idea that time may be a construct and that, there is no past, present, and future as we understand it to be. And she looked at me and she said, no, Alexis, now you've gone over my head. I'm not following you. You just whoosh. So it was just very interesting. And I think I just went, from that point on, my studies got a lot more serious. But I think the reason why I resonated with that theory so easily, it was because at the time I was having a lot of deja vu. And I would say, I wonder if that would have something to do with it, because maybe we're not experiencing, we know what a deja vu is, right? You go through a period of time, a minute, usually less, sometimes more, where you could swear every single thing in that space of time you are experiencing again, including the tone of your own voice that's speaking, the smell in the air. I mean, it's a duplicate, right? And I would have that all the time. And I used to get them so often that I would just kind of sit and wait for it to morph back to a new experience or, one time an undeja vu. But when I got a whiff of the whole idea, the prospect of simultaneous time, I said, you know what, there's something to this. That's where I would put that. And I would agree with you that now where we're having the conversation about the universe as a, computer simulation and that we're really a part of a massive cosmic code. Ancient Aliens, by the way, did a great show. I believe it's in this current season on the Akashic records and broached the whole, computer simulation idea. That was all rolled up into that episode. But yes, we're now getting information that might account for some of these strange things that have been happening all our lives.
Yeah, I used to say, out loud when I had a deja vu, that I felt that somebody has read my book. That's the way that I looked at it. That somebody had, my book is complete out there somewhere, and somebody has accessed it, and they're reading it to me right now. Because when that stuff goes down. And for me, it was very vivid, too. I mean, I knew what everybody was going to say in the room, word for word, and I would just sit and write it out. I'm like, okay, yeah, this is cool. All right. There's something going on. I'm not too sure. Now, I wanted to ask you this before I let you go. When it comes to the Mandela effect, we all have had something to relate to with it. What's your Mandela effect?
You mean those experiences I feel fall into that category?
Yes, for you personally.
I have several. I mean, I think that one of the most common things when we think of the Mandela effect is the dead again idea. People that particularly, they tend to be public figures that you hear have died recently, and you're like, I could swear they've died before. I've had many of those.
Give me one. Well, no, give me.
Want me to give you one real quick?
Yes.
That I don't know would fall squarely within this. I've told this story before. Very quickly. It's about James Gandolfini of Sopranos and others, but Sopranos fame. You recall he passed, 3-4 years ago, maybe? Right. Something in that area.
Mm-hmm.
I was at the time on my little laptop in the kitchen. In fact, I was doing what I called kitchen conversations of, at the time, Conscious Inquiry Radio. And I had been doing some research on something else and had been perusing some news sites. And I go to a website. I cannot recall what the website was, but and I was going very quickly, and I thought I saw a headline that said, James Gandolfini dead at, I don't know what age. Now keep in mind, this was probably 3 or 4 days before it was announced that he died. Well, I said, did I just see James Gandolfini just died? And I tried to get back to the website and I couldn't find it anywhere. Well, I let it go. I said, if that happened, I'm really sorry to hear that. Well, I think it was I'm so funny because it's now Wednesday here, 12:39, but it was a Wednesday, I believe, that they announced, maybe several days after I saw what I thought I saw, that lo and behold, he had passed. Of course, first thing I do is I run downstairs to my husband. Whenever these things happen, bless his heart, he's the first witness. And please make sure I remember to tell you this or blah, blah, blah. He's the one that hears this news. I said, you're not going to believe what just happened. James Gandolfini just died. But I saw the headline 3 days before. I would have to say, if you could call it that was an odd thing.
Yeah, that's pretty bizarro because that actually happened with Rita and I last week with Manson. And that's really weird because we were almost the exact same thing, Alexis. We were at a checkout line. I'll keep the story brief. And she turns to me. I'm like, running the credit card, right? We're paying for some stuff. And she goes, Manson just died. He's 83. And I went, oh, come on, fake news, whatever. And, so I punched her and we're walking out and she shows me her phone and I look at the phone. I went, oh, come on, that's a fake news website. She goes, okay. She, turns it off and we split. We jumped around on CNN and some other stuff in the car just to make sure that, that he hadn't died. It hadn't popped up. And I think we may have checked it later on the day. The next night at 8:30, he dies, right? So this is what Rita does. And we're tripping. She searches in her phone, in her internet history, and can't find the website. Right? Can't find it. We know where we were, what time, what was going on, and she showed it to me, all of that. Couldn't find it in her search history.
Isn't that something?
Yeah, it was kind of
Isn't
weird.
Reality just
It was kind of weird.
Fantastic, isn't it? Really?
It was kind of weird. It was kind of weird. That, and so we've been trying to dismiss it in our own brains that, okay, maybe he was taken to a hospital and maybe it was that, and maybe that was the news story. And maybe we're trying to make excuses for ourselves. The fact is, the headline said Manson dead at 83, and we could not find the website in her browser history on her cell phone.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe it was a precog. That's another story, but yeah.
All right. Well, listen, thank you. And thank you for doing the overtime.
My pleasure. You're awesome.
Really quick. No, you're awesomer. What are you doing? What's the easiest way for everybody to get a hold of you? And are you speaking? What's going on?
Well, the show continues to go on. HigherJourneys.com is where I live online. So you can get to my YouTube channel, my Facebook page, all that good stuff from HigherJourneys.com. And as I mentioned to you, I don't know if I mentioned the name, and I think I'm going to leak it a little bit. I'm so proud to be right in the midst of recording an audiobook for Miguel Mendonça. I'm doing his Meet the Hybrids book. I'll be the narrator for that upcoming audiobook. So
really,
I'm knee deep in that as we speak. Hence the reason why I've been clearing my throat so much tonight, because I'm in the midst of working on that. That's both Barbara Lamb and Miguel Mendonça. So I'm honored to be able to do that for them. Conscious Commentary is coming out tomorrow, and we'll be talking about Seth, and we'll be talking about how consciousness creates reality, not the other way around. I think the only speaking I'm going to be doing is in the microphone with this book and the show for the time being. But we're planning on being out in LA again. From the East Coast, we'll be flying out for Conscious Life Expo. And as you say, you were trying to remember whether you had interviewed me or I had interviewed you. Maybe you were going back to the future, because when I see you, Jimmy Church, I'd like to interview you.
Oh, man, that would be so much fun. I want to be
Let's
Dolan. I want to be Dolan. I want the good questions. Alexis, thank you so much, and look forward to seeing the both of you out here at Conscious Life Expo once again. And we'll just reunite and reunion and do all of that stuff. And Rita says hello, by the way.
Thank you so much, and hugs to Rita. And I can't wait to see you. Thanks for having me so much.
Thank you, Alexis. All the best. Now go get some sleep.
I'm going to do that. You take care.
I'll talk to you. Alexis Brooks, everybody, and thank you for doing that overtime with us. Going to take a little break, and then when I come back, I'll go over some headlines and, of course, take a couple of phone calls, and then we'll wrap this one up. Alexis Brooks, it is higherjourneys.com. The links are over at jimmychurchradio.com. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Here, and you are listening to my boy Jimmy Church on jimmychurchradio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
So you went to dinner last night, you had your favorite pasta. Ugh. Or maybe you had a heavy, spicy meal and it left you. Ugh. GetTheT.com. Maybe you mowed down a huge steak and your plumbing is all plugged. Ugh. GetTheT.com. Our super strength tea will take care of your occasional. Ugh. It's all organic and non-GMO. Get rid of ugh. We have so many great supplements, but our super tea is number one. GetTheT.com. That's GetTheT.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roasted to the dark side of fade to black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Yes, River Moon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy.
Hey, can we talk about something serious for a minute? Your age. Getting old has its perks. But remember, being a few years younger, you know, your hair was thicker, you didn't have so many wrinkles, that extra weight wasn't haunting you, and you just felt better. Well, we can't turn back the clocks and go back 10 or 15 years, but you can start feeling and looking 10 or 15 years younger with Nature's Youth RSF. It's a doctor-formulated daily supplement that helps your body maintain its peak performance and fight the aging process. Imagine sleeping better, looking better, and feeling better. See how Nature's Youth RSF has helped thousands of people just like you at nature'syouth.com. nature'syouth.com. The holidays are coming. Imagine how it will feel when your family and friends are asking you what you did to look so good. Your secret will be Nature's Youth RSF. It's time to start looking better and feeling better. Learn more and order your Nature's Youth RSF at nature'syouth.com. That's nature'syouth.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRARadio.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. Alexis Brooks. Just sat down looking at Twitter. You guys get it. Great guest. So cool. And you'll just love her interview style and the way she does things over on her show, Higher Journeys. And the links are right there. So go check it out. And she's easy to reach out to. So it's all right there at higherjourneys.com. Okay, now, a couple of things really quick before I get out of here tonight. Speaking of these things that we're talking about tonight, this story, listen to this. This is absolutely unbelievable. New York Attorney General Eric Schneiderman is investigating what he calls a massive scheme to corrupt the Federal Communications Commission with fake public comments on net neutrality. Now, let me continue, but before I do, this whole question about net neutrality and what is real about it and what isn't is something that needs to be discussed in public in an honest way. And we're not getting that. And the way that net neutrality plays out, there's a positive and a negative on both sides of the fence here. I like the internet the way that it is right now. Okay, it's a little corrupt, it's a little funky, it's a little strange, it's a little dark, it's a little weird, but it's ours. And I like the ability for anybody to have a voice and have it equal. Okay, that's what I dig about it. Well, in an open letter to the Federal Communication System Chairman Ajit Pai, the Schneiderman said that the agency hasn't provided him with information critical to an investigation his office is conducting. Now let me continue. Schneiderman said in a tweet that his office has been investigating a massive scheme, I'm quoting here from Schneiderman, over the last 6 months to corrupt the FCC's comment process on net neutrality by impersonating hundreds of thousands of real Americans, end quote. This is serious. In the letter, Schneiderman wrote that the process the FCC has employed, and I'm quoting here directly from Schneiderman, employed to consider potentially sweeping alterations to current net neutrality rules has been corrupted by the fraudulent use of Americans' identities, and the FCC has been unwilling to assist my office in our efforts to investigate this unlawful activity. Now, what he is saying here is that the FCC is using real people and bots and sock puppets to infiltrate social media to make comments on net neutrality, and it is coming from fake identities in the numbers of hundreds of thousands. Our own government, the FCC. Okay? Now, his letter comes after Pai announced last Tuesday that the FCC will vote to roll back Obama-era net neutrality rules that require internet service providers to treat all web traffic equally. Pai said in a statement, blasted the rules as heavy-handed utility-style regulation of the internet imposed by Democrats. Again, this is the head of the FCC. Can't do that. You can't politicize this, can you? Of course you can. And you really can't. Now, I'm not red or blue. Oh, no. This has nothing to do with that. I'm about internet freedom. Schneiderman's letter continues, specifically and I'm quoting, specifically, for 6 months, my office has been investigated who perpetrated a massive scheme to corrupt the FCC's notice and comment process through the misuse of enormous numbers of real New Yorkers and other Americans' identities. He continues, such conduct likely violates state law. Yet the FCC has refused multiple requests for crucial evidence in its sole possession that is vital to permit that law enforcement investigation to proceed. Schneiderman wrote that his office found tens of thousands of New Yorkers may have had their identities misused. He said in June 2017, his office contacted the FCC to request records relating to its public comment system. He said that his office made the request for logs and other records at least 9 times over the past 5 months and asked multiple top FCC officials for assistance. Now, I'm quoting here. Yet we have received no substantive response to our investigative request. None, end quote, he wrote. We all have a powerful reason to hold accountable those who would steal Americans' identities and assault the public's right to be heard in government rulemaking, end quote. The letter continues, if law enforcement can't investigate and, where appropriate, prosecute when it happens on this scale, the door is open for it to happen again and again, end quote. Schneiderman encouraged the FCC to reconsider its refusal to help his office law enforcement investigation to identify and hold accountable those who illegally misuse so many New Yorkers' identities to corrupt the public comment process. In an era where foreign governments have indisputably tried to use the internet and social media to influence our elections, federal and state governments should be working together to ensure that malevolent actors cannot subvert our administrative agencies' decision-making processes. End quote. Now, let's be clear here. I want you to understand that corporations that own not only media outlets, and I'm talking about everything out there from HBO to news outlets, television, streaming services, everything that is out there today, everything is internet driven. It doesn't matter. It's all internet driven. So when you have things like Netflix or Amazon Prime or Hulu or Fandango or whatever, any other apps that you are running, right? And one company owns, say, and I'll pick something, I'll just say it, Amazon. But they also own an internet provider in that corporation structure. And another one owns Netflix or Hulu and in their area. But they, over in the other area of internet control, they don't want Netflix. They need the bandwidth to support Amazon. So if you are subscribing to Netflix and you live in their internet provider area, you will have to pay extra to get Netflix streaming without buffering, and vice versa. And it's now they are using it under the guise, well, this is capitalism, man. Supply and demand. You want it, you're going to have to pay for it. That is not right. Everybody has an equal footing on the internet, and streaming services take up so much bandwidth today. But it also goes across the board. Okay, so it just means that you will have to pay more to have consistent internet speeds across the board from everybody. Because something is slower, right, doesn't mean that you should have to pay for something that somebody else wants to choke down. But that's what's going to happen. And you really need to consider what net neutrality really, really means. Is it the Wild West and more money to be made out there, right? And supply and demand will fix things on its own? I'm not so sure. I just like the freedom of knowing in my own mind that, everybody's got an equal crack at being buffered. This is Fade to Black, and Fade to Black's executive producer is Rita Kamarian. Show is produced by Hilton J. Palm and Renee. Thank you, too. Dennis, thank you, Bob. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vitola, Mark D. Kovar, Webmaster Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Indro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network, and syndication is KGRA, The Planet. Thank you to Alexis Brooks, higherjourneys.com. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2017 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. I'll see everybody tomorrow night. But until then, be safe. Go Beckley Tappy.